All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cast the Future. This is episode 14. We are on our second Halloween themed episode. My name is Curtis. I will be a debater in this one. We have Rudy returning as a debater. We've got George as a judge. We have Logan as our third debater. We have Jessica as our head judge for today. We have Jack as our other judge and Erik as our last judge for today. And the film that we are going to be discussing today on Cast the Future is the 1980 horror Stanley Kubrick classic, The Shining, of course, based on the novel by Stephen King about the Torrance family being hired to look over the Overlook Hotel during the main winter season. And as they are in this hotel, cabin fever starts to set in, uneasiness starts to set in, suspensefulness starts to set in, and supernatural elements start to set in. And the spirits of the Overlook Hotel are pestering the Torrance family, and especially Jack Torrance, tempting him to eventually try to murder his own family. And of course, little Danny Torrance, the only son of Jack and Wendy Torrance, can see these ghosts because he has what they call the Shining. He has supernatural, mystical, psychic powers that allow him to give him those abilities. Um, we're not going to be discussing much about the book. We're going to be discussing more about the movie in this episode. And as always, we're going to share our brief thoughts about the film. I will start first. Between this movie and The Exorcist, ask me any different day that my decision might change. But to me, this is one of the best horror films ever made. Period. Again, to me, it flip flops between this and Exorcist, and it depends on the day you ask me. But this is one of the films that I saw when I was in high school. I caught it on TV. I think it was on AMC channel or something like that for one of their Halloween marathons. And even as I think like a 17-year-old high school senior watching this for the first time, I was completely enamored with the films. I was sucked into the atmosphere, the tension, the suspense, the setting, Stanley Kubrick's tone that he set up for the film, the characters, and the scares. This film legitimately scared me as this 17-year-old kid who's trying to be all macho, trying to be all tough. But I mean, the one scene that got me was the room 237 scene where Jack goes into the room and sees the lady in the tub, go makes out with her, and then and finds out, oh no, she's actually a decaying old lady corpse. And my jaw was down to the floor that entire scene. I was shaking. I couldn't scream. I couldn't make a sound. It just affected. For years, I could not watch that scene again. Every time I watch The Shining, I always have to skip over that scene because I couldn't handle it. That is until a year ago when they re-released it just before Doctor Sleep. I was in the theater, so I couldn't escape. So I couldn't just walk out and come back in. So I just had to sit there. And you know what? It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad, surprisingly, that time. So I could handle that scene now. But yeah, that's just how much the movie impacted me. Um, Simply one of the best horror films of all time. Erik, what are your thoughts on The Shining?
Oh, this was a movie that genuinely scared me for a long time. So I completely relate to you, Curtis. The room 237 scene horrified me for years. And sometimes the gift of having either a DVD or VCR, I could just skip over it. But I grew up and learned to appreciate horror movies more. And yeah, watching the scene. But for Stanley Kubrick, like the visuals in that film, just it's hard. It's unblinking. It's so beautiful, especially out of all the films he's done, there's always horror elements in this film, but he's never made a straightforward horror film before. So seeing him put all of his talent into this film, just like you can't stop watching it. So even though it's a bit of a long movie, it's a movie that I'm just never bored watching, and especially the descent into madness was just, I thought, visually very well put together. Um, I have not read the book, so I'm not going to make that comparison. But seeing the film, it's one of my all-time favorite horror films. So I'm glad to be here and judge this.
How about you, George? What's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I really like it. I love Stanley Kubrick, and this is one of my favorites of his, definitely like top five. I have not read the book either. And I think it's interesting because I think it's one of the best movies based on a Stephen King novel, but from what I understand, it's not very faithful to the book. So, but it does seem like I really like Stephen King, but it seems like he's not the best at adapting his own work. It seems like the people that make the best movies out of his work kind of make it their own and make, a movie out of it instead of just being faithful to the book. Um, so yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorite horror movies, and one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations, and one of my favorite Kubrick movies.
How about you, Jack?
This is probably my pick for my favorite horror movie of all time. It stays scary. It stays weird. There's still parts of it that I don't understand. I don't understand the guy in the bear suit with Grady. I don't understand that. I don't understand the ending. And I don't think I'm supposed to. And that's one of the things I love about Kubrick is he doesn't give you all the answers. He makes you think and he makes you discuss. And that's what I think makes his movies still so interesting, visually and from a story standpoint. I have read the book. I love the book. And while the movie is pretty different from the book, maybe it's because I saw the movie first. I love them both equally. And I can see where Stephen King might be dissatisfied, and particularly in the portrayal of the character of Jack. He is much more sympathetic in the book, but for what it is, the movie is just so good. It's just so good, and I love it, and it warranted a made-for-TV remake, which is much more accurate to the book and isn't bad because it is accurate to the book, and the book is amazing. So, but I absolutely love this movie. Greatest horror movie ever.
All right, let's hear your opinion, Jessica.
This is one that I think I'm in the minority that I don't love this movie. I like it, but I feel like the more I watch it, the more problems that I see with it. I really do appreciate kind of the insight into not just like a haunting, but it's also like with the familial issues and addiction issues, because as we all know, Jack is a recovering alcoholic. I do really enjoy this movie for its performances. I think that Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall did a great job. As far as Kubrick goes, I know he is a great director. However, with me, I have just issues with him as a person because I know he kind of tortured Shelley Duvall on this set, which I didn't think was right. She was very traumatized after it. But yeah, I mean, as a whole, it's a good haunting movie and it has good performances all around, so I can appreciate it for that element, and it does have some really beautiful shots.
Logan.
Oh, I came to this movie a little bit later. I know I saw it when I was in high school, but I was only just getting into horror movies, so it didn't really hit with me as much as it did. In college, everyone was, that was the horror movie that everyone could consistently talk about and enjoy. I started really getting into it in the more recent years. I rewatched the movie and then started thinking about, just the extra layers there were to the story, and read the book because it's like, why not see as much of this stuff as I could? And I started just really liking the world that was kind of built within this book. And then when I obviously continued into Dr. Sleep, that was really fascinating to see as well. I like a lot of the cinematography of the movie. It is visually a beautiful film. And the fact that a lot of the movie is just this extra slow move kind of, it just adds to this weird offsetting feeling of the hotel itself that adds really well to the atmosphere. So just, I thoroughly enjoy this movie. It's creepy in all the right ways, and it's still pretty darn terrifying.
And how about Rudy?
I think I remember watching this horror movie when I was younger, or at least scenes of it. And when I was younger, I thought it was a lot of fun. I think my spirit animal at that age was Jack Nicholson coming up the stairs at Shelley Duvall with the baseball bat. And But as I grew up and started looking at movies a little bit differently, I started to wonder, like, what's the big deal about this? Like, why does everybody like make it out to be like the best horror movie ever? And just recently in the last couple of years, when Doctor Sleep came out, then I became like really fascinated with it. I think like I thought Doctor Sleep was like the best horror movie I'd seen in like a decade or so like that. And it was interesting like putting the two movies like side by side and like how they complemented each other. And it's neat. Like it wasn't like the typical sequel. It was like, taught you more about the world. And I haven't seen the book, or I mean, I haven't read the book, but I guess it's like it's appealing. It's really interesting movie. How we were saying, like how Jack was mentioning how there's like a lot of questions to it, and they don't give you all the answers, and it's nice being able to have something to talk about afterwards.
Yeah, most definitely. I love it when movies do that. Do it kind of open ended to the audience's opinion. And there's another quick thing. If you folks haven't not seen Doctor Sleep, that movie's surprisingly underrated. Not a lot of people talk about it. It's really, really good. It's not as good as The Shining, but it's a nice accompaniment to the movie. It's
So good.
It is really good. Mike Flanagan did such a great job with it. But as with all cast of the futures, we're gonna pretend that this movie never existed. Never was released in 1980, 40 years ago. We never got The Shining. We probably got the subpart miniseries back in the 90s, but we haven't actually got the movie that we all know and love until today. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna be one of the debaters for today. So is Logan, so is Rudy. We're gonna debate our choices for the cast of 2020's The Shining, as well as the director, with Jessica being our head judge. So let's not waste any time. I've got my Shining t-shirt here, got my Danny t-shirt, got my, see it, Overlook Hotel mug right here, sitting my hot cocoa. So without further ado, let's pass to the future. Jessica, take it away.
All right, so the first role that we're going to be looking at casting in this is going to be for the role of Lloyd. Originally played by Joe Turkel, a very minor but still really impactful character, the ghostly bartender of the Overlook that figuratively and literally helps Jack Torrance drink himself to insanity. So for our first debate, Rudy, how about you take the floor?
So it was interesting, like, going back and watching The Shining and realizing how little of a part Lloyd has. Like, I think he's only in the movie for like 2 or 3 scenes. And I wanted to, it makes it challenging to choose an actor because you don't want to choose like a celebrity and you're not going to give them like a lot of meat to work with. And I decided to go with someone that was a little bit older and who I think has like a great reputation. I went with John Goodman. And was trying to think of parts that he has in his past that could make him suitable for this position. And I was thinking of like 10 Cloverfield Lane. I think it's like another underrated horror movie. Like, it was really popular at the time when it came out. And then people have just kind of forgotten about it over time. And it's Lloyd, the character, and all the ghosts inside the hotel. They're like the Force in Star Wars. It's like they don't actually do a lot of physical work, but they influence the characters to do things. And I think that the character of Lloyd shouldn't show much enthusiasm, but he should, again, like, influence Jack Torrance. And I think that John Goodman's performance in 10 Cloverfield Lane shows that he can give that performance, that he's real menacing, that, he seems friendly and that he's on your side. He's looking out for your own good. But at the same time, he's got some ulterior motives and he's scary.
All right. And Curtis, how about your choice for Lloyd?
All right, so for my choice for Lloyd, I decided to go with someone who's sort of good. You can say he's kind of a big name, but I think if you put him in this type of role, it's a minor role, but it will leave an impact, just as it should leave an impact as the character of Lloyd does. And that actor, surprisingly enough, is going to be Henry Cavill, Superman himself. Now, I believe Henry Cavill, if you use him the right way, could come off as a bit cold and a bit kind of stoic and tense, which Lloyd's not really that tense, but he's sort of uneasy. I think you get that out of Henry Cavill. Something about Henry Cavill's voice and his demeanor and his look, his stature. He has he's a tall, big dude, and he has a bit of an intimidating stature. Just him overlooking Jack and serving him drinks and talking with that very deep voice of his, the very deep British voice of his, I think it could come off as uneasy. Some people might find him too charming, but I think he used that stature to his advantage with playing Lloyd. So my choice is Henry Cavill.
Okay, and Logan, who is your choice for Lloyd?
My choice for Lloyd is an actor who I think has getting a bit more appreciation in recent years. His name is Michael Sheen. You might have seen him in things like Good Omens. I know I originally first saw him in Underworld back in the early 2000s as the head of the vampires, Lucian. But throughout his career, he has always played these slightly odd characters. And even when they are presenting as something seemingly normal, there's something off about them, whether it's like Lucian in Underworld, he's presented as the straightforward villain, but then you figure out the movie, it's like, oh, he's actually, spoiler alert for a decade-old movie, but he's being framed for all of these, and he's actually an innocent victim in a lot of this. But I've seen a lot through Michael Sheen's career that shows he can do the quiet menace that works really well for a character like Lloyd, but also has that kind of friendly, inviting personality that would welcome someone like Jack up to the bar and, coax him to have another drink. And then another, and then another. And then why don't you pick up that axe? So I think Michael Sheen could kind of work with that a little bit and make it a kind of a quirky, odd character that stands out in the few scenes where he would appear.
All right, guys, go ahead and debate.
Well, I can't really see the character of Lloyd being a bit quirky and odd. I mean, there's some oddness to him, but at the same time, he's kind of cold and and his tone is a bit one-dimensional. If we're trying to portray the character as he did, as the original actor did in the original 1980 film, I think we need someone who could do one-dimensional and who could have a low tone and who could come off as kind of cool. I mean, I really appreciate Henry Cavill's portrayal of Superman, but you hear a lot of people's criticism of Henry Cavill as Superman that could kind of work to his advantage of playing Lloyd, is that he was a bit too his performance is a bit too one-dimensional and a bit too cold from the other Superman that people are used to. And I think if that's the way Henry Cavill comes off to most people, then I think he can use that to his advantage in playing this character.
While I enjoy Henry Cavill, like plain and simple, Lloyd is this very unassuming face of the evil of the hotel. You look at him and you aren't supposed to see a threat. It's the flower that is dangling before the monster gets you. And Henry Cavill can break anybody he wants in half. The man is he is a very broad-chested man, and he always comes across as physically kind of imposing and ominous. And while I agree that like the cool, ominous nature of his voice and a lot of that, I do agree that can fit. For me, he feels like just he's a bit too, a glare. Like he seems like he's gonna be like, Jack, I'm pouring you a drink and you don't have a choice with it. Like I'm making you drink it or you're gonna eat that glass. And that's a weird kind of vibe for Lloyd. And with John Goodman, I love John Goodman. He's one of my favorite actors. He's one of those actors I always say, it's like, if you don't like John Goodman, something's wrong with you, because he's universally loved by everybody. But I can't think of John Goodman as a bartender in this kind of bar. As weird as that sounds, I imagine John Goodman as a bartender, like in the city, like he's wearing jeans, he's wearing flannels, he's talking to you like that, but like this very fancy hotel in the mountains where he's wearing a 3-piece suit, like, and I realize it's New Year's and he's kind of stuck in that motif, but that oddly feels like it doesn't necessarily feel like the John Goodman bartender I would expect, and so I don't know. There's something about that just doesn't quite sit as well with me. I don't know. But when it comes to Lloyd or Michael Sheen, I want to like, yeah, he's done quirky. You know, if you look at stuff like Good Omens, yes, he is quirky, but he has done other things where he is very quiet. And he's even done a bit of a kind of homage to playing this kind of bartender in Passengers with Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. I will be honest, I didn't see the movie, but from what I recall in the trailer, he was a cybernetic bartender that was the only person that Chris Pratt was able to talk to. He only had I think a set number of responses or something. So like he's kind of done this. I'm a bartender, and I can kind of, so like he can do this kind of slower, quiet, cool that I think could work really well.
I think I agree with you that it could be challenging to see John Goodman playing the part. Like maybe you couldn't imagine him looking real formal and matching what the Overlook ought to provide. I completely forgot that Michael Sheen was in Passengers, and maybe that's a good thing because his character, the supporting character within The Shining, is so passive aggressive in making Jack Torrance do what he's supposed to do. But at least the actor from I think that the actors from the Shining, at least they made an impression and they stuck with you. That Michael Sheen might, and you were saying like Michael Sheen's played different things and he's not always quirky. I think that I hope that he wouldn't be forgettable in this part, that he would make an impression. Henry Cavill, I think I agree with you, Logan, about how he seems like a brute might not be the right word. That might be too extreme. Yeah. But like there's that scene in Mission Impossible when Tom Cruise go on that first mission, and Tom Cruise is like, okay, we got to like slip in there and take care of things like a surgeon. And then all of a sudden he like shatters the iPad with the other guy's face. He definitely, as you said, Curtis, he's got that, he provides exactly what we want, like how the audience would feel uncomfortable about him, about how he's like the depressing Superman that nobody wants. And like, maybe we should take advantage of that. I appreciate where you're coming from with that.
I want to go back to what Logan said about, Lloyd being this like dangling pretty flower that's the bait to learn the victim until the monster gets them. Yeah, Henry Cavill has his stature he's kind of big. He does look a bit intimidating. He does look like he could break your bones if you want to, but Henry Cavill is not that, really not that type of person. He comes across as this charming, suave guy. You see, watch him in the recent, Netflix movie Enola Holmes, and especially in like Man from U.N.C.L.E. He plays like a suave debonair type of dude, and I think with him being with Lloyd, I think his charm and charisma is what helps him in that role. It could be used as a way to like charm and convince Jack to take another drink, and I get to see him egging on Jack to get a drink. Your drinks on the house. And Henry Cavill like pretending to be a little bit friendly towards Jack because he just has that vibe to him. He just has that dude who's gonna be your friend and who's gonna take care of you. I think he already gives off that kind of vibe.
Well, you mentioned that Cavill, like, the debonair, but that also kind of, I feel, has me going, how would a guy like Henry Cavill be just working in a bar like this? Like, it's one of those where it's like, he seems like he's the guy who's like, I'm going to swing in for the night and I'm going to pick up some ladies at this bar and then I'm heading out. Like, he doesn't necessarily, to me, he seems like he's a little too cool to be like, I'm here at this hotel and I've been working here and I love working here. Like, it's just, I don't know. He just, because you're right, he is ridiculously charming, but he seems like he is so charming that in the time that he was working at the Overlook before whatever tragic fate befell him, that he would have charmed his way higher up the food chain than just being the bartender.
Yeah, I would hope that he's, as much as like, the character is supposed to look formal, I think adding a suaveness on top of it would be it would be odd. It would be standing out too much. Maybe it's not what's essential to the character, and is as much as like it'd be nice that he'd be charming. I don't recall ever seeing Henry Cavill play a character that's sadistic and passive aggressive at the same time. I think that John Goodman is better suited for that. You know, he could come across as like being a member of a cult, like maybe like somebody that you wouldn't that's suited for that part.
And I think Michael Sheen can fall into that too. I know he was in a series called Prodigal Son, where he played a serial killer who had been arrested and was kind of behind bars, and was always kind of he gave off that like, I'm here, but am I? And there's this, I don't know. There's just something about Michael Sheen. I always really like the dude. There's something that, like, even when he's playing characters that are kind of off and kind of creepy, there's something inviting about him. Like if I was to be walking in through the giant doors of this Overlook Hotel and see this big bar, and Michael Sheen turns around and kind of faces me, I'd be like, that's a friendly face. I'd like to go get a drink from that. Like, it's just, I don't know. He just seems like a friendly guy to want to go up and then kind of be that first interaction for the face of the hotel.
I just want to add one thing. Even though Henry Cavill has sort of this like Disney Prince Charming type of look and face to him. I mean, he's Superman. He's supposed to be like over top handsome. I think with the right like type of practical makeup, you could make his face easily a little bit more sunken and his eyes a little bit more gloomy. And I think he would look not only still a little bit charming, but at the same time, intimidating as heck. And I think, I mean, this might be a little gimmicky trick, but like you have that shot of, you know, Jack going into the bar. It's from Lloyd's point of view. And he's like, hey, Lloyd. It's kind of slow today, isn't it? He does that laugh, and then he reveals Lloyd. I think if you do that with this version of Shining, you reveal it's Henry Cavill. I mean, it sounds gimmicky, but imagine like people just going nuts, like, what? Henry Cavill, he's in this movie? I think that could work to this film's advantage and make it, you know, a little bit more memorable. That's just my little 2 cents.
And I could see people having the reaction. I mean, I agree, but I also see some people like having that beat of like, Henry Cavill's in? Like I could see it being that flip side where it's, you know, it's the exact same kind of thing where it's like, oh, like, okay. And, you know, but this is the tricky part whenever we do these. Like, all three of these are stellar actors. They're all really good at what they do. Yeah. I mean, yeah, all I can say is I don't envy the judges for any of the debates today, because this is just going to be a hard one. I don't know.
It'd be nice to see Henry Cavill and the makeup crew and the lighting working together as you expect from any movie, and to see him provide a different performance than we're used to seeing as a result. But I think like so many of like Stephen King's been disappointed with so many adaptations of his movies so far, and I think gambling on an actor that hopefully like lighting and prosthetics will give across the performance that we'd like is kind of risky when we want to please the author and the audience with such an epic tale.
All right, good debate, you guys. I guess I'll start us out. These are all really good choices, so it does make it difficult. I do love John Goodman, and I know that he can play menacing very, very well. But he's also kind of one of those ones that a lot, kind of like Henry Cavill, he might not have like the hottie hot imposing like body, but he is very tall, and he himself kind of has a formidable presence. And with Henry Cavill, I know that he's actually a very good actor. I loved him in Man from U.N.C.L.E. That's kind of where I saw more of his acting chops. I do think that having the broad presence is a little bit of an issue for me, and also just his looks. I feel like Wendy would be in the bar more often than Jack if Henry Cavill was the bartender, if I'm being honest. And with Michael Sheen, like, I am one that unfortunately I did see Passengers, but his performance in that, like when Logan started talking about Michael Sheen being the bartender, I legitimately thought, wait, I think he played Lloyd in like an adaptation, but that I was remembering, no, that was in Passengers. And it feels almost like The Shining in space, but not as good. But he was just one that basically to me kind of felt like his audition for Lloyd. So great choices all around, but my choice is ultimately going to lie with Michael Sheen for Lloyd. Jack, how about you?
Yeah, very good choices all around. I agree with what you just said, Jessica, that Wendy would be in the bar more often than Jack if Henry Cavill was the bartender. So would I. Yeah, I think he's much too big a star and much too gorgeous for such. I mean, it is a critical part, absolutely, no question, but it is pretty small. So I think you would have to go with more of a character actor. John Goodman. I love John Goodman, but he might even be too big of a name for that size of a part. And also, John Goodman, he can play menacing, but even menacing, he's still a likable in some way kind of guy. And remember, this is a ghost that we're dealing with. So I'm gonna have to go with Michael Steele. Michael Steele.
Yeah. George, how about your choice?
Yeah, I mean, again, three very interesting choices, very different actors. I do think that Henry Cavill and John Goodman might be two big stars to play Lloyd. I mean, like you guys have said, he's a crucial part of the movie, but he's a small role. And I think with Henry Cavill and John Goodman, you would be fully aware that you're watching them, and it would feel like kind of like a celebrity cameo. And they would both do a good job, but I feel like it'd be kind of distracting. And I feel like Michael Sheen is kind of in that interesting level where we know who he is, but he kind of disappears into his parts, and he can be charming, he can be scary, and he's not going to be distracting on screen. And I haven't seen Passengers, so maybe it would be too similar, but I'm going to go with Michael Sheen as well.
All right, so with that, it looks like the winner of this round is Michael Sheen, but Erik, I would still love to hear your thoughts and your choice.
Oh, cool. I was going to choose Michael Sheen. Logan, you won me over when you mentioned Prodigal Son. I am like, if there was any other role besides Passengers that hasn't been mentioned for him and why he's perfect for the part of Lloyd, it's definitely Prodigal Son. And yeah, he is menacing in that, but you're just kind of wondering, like, is he there or isn't he? So I was like, you painted the picture perfectly. The other two actors, they would be wonderful, but I think it's just been said many times they would be a little distracting. John Goodman, I feel like he might want to go for Delbert Grady, something a little more menacing. Henry Cavill, I guess after signing the deal with DC, he might be a little busy, but if he wasn't, I feel like he might want to go for a Jack Torrance or one of the more starring roles. Or heck, maybe even Delbert Grady. I feel like he would have gone for that too. But Lloyd, I just think perfect character actor, Michael Sheen. There you go.
Okay, perfect. So it looks like our Lloyd is going to be Michael Sheen. Without further ado, we'll just go on to our next round, which is going to be casting the role of Delbert Grady. Originally played by Philip Stone, a past caretaker of the Overlook who went insane and murdered his entire family, then eventually himself. As an apparition of the Overlook, he encourages Jack Torrance to correct his family. So Curtis, if you want to say your choice, go ahead.
All right. My choice is probably a little bit of an unconventional choice for Delbert Grady, but I can easily see him in the role, and he, despite the roles that he's known for playing, I can easily see him come across as welcoming and charming and quirky at first, as Delbert Grady is, and then slowly you do see his more menacing and intimidating killer side of him. And I think the actor who would do that great would be Martin Freeman, who a lot of you know as Bilbo Baggins in the Hobbit trilogy. He was in the British version of The Office. He was also in Black Panther. He was in a Netflix post-apocalyptic zombie film called Cargo. And just kind of basing this on because in Cargo, he played against his type. He wasn't like the quirky, um, the quirky little guy. He was more of a grizzled, hardened type of dude. And I think that just goes to the type of range that Martin Freeman has as an actor. And he even though and this would play against his type, as an actor, I can see him using his eyes to really strictly order Jack to correct his family because that's what Philip Stone kind of did in the original film. He started off as welcoming, started off as charming, and then like slowly he became really cold and menacing, which is a brilliant scene in the film. So my choice would be Martin Freeman.
Okay. Logan, how about your choice?
My choice for Grady is going to be Colin Firth. Now, you probably know him from things more recently, like Kingsman, but he's also been in everything from Bridget Jones, King's Speech, a little bit Love Actually, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. But for me, when it comes to Grady, like, this is a man who, when he is presented to us at the beginning of the film, he is, to Jack's knowledge, he's just the previous caretaker of the hotel. Cool, fine. He seems like a nice, chill guy. And then all of a sudden it's, oh yeah, he took out his wife and daughters with an axe. And you're like, oh no, like you are horrified to find this out. And that is how I felt every time Colin Firth telescoped somebody's spine in Kingsman. He is one of those actors where he is always likable and charming. Like he's got that like British, oh, I'm terribly befuddled, I'm so sorry. But he always still had but with Kingsman, like he shows that he has this harder edge that can be shocking when it's utilized really well. And I think that could be a nice angle to kind of play with, like, and I mean, lest we forget, actually, Curtis, like you said, that Grady has the whole thing of like, Jack, you need to correct your family. And it's like, well, unless we forget with Colin Firth, manners maketh man. All right, I'm gonna listen to what he has to say with kind of guiding me in that direction. So my choice for Grady would be Colin Firth.
All right, and Rudy.
For the character of Delbert Grady, I hope I'm not mispronouncing the actor's name, but Ralph Fiennes that played Voldemort in the Harry Potter franchise for the later half of the series. And in addition to that, he's also maybe like somewhat recognized as M from the recent 007 movies, the James Bond ones, along with Daniel Craig. I think like part of what stood out to me is not only does he resemble him, he wouldn't have to do much work because he keeps his hair short to resemble what we've seen in the 1980 films. He's a really intimidating person, even without like the makeup and like prosthetics and stuff from Harry Potter. There's the iconic description of 007 throughout the franchise of the man who has a license to kill, and like hearing him say those lines, it's he was a supporting character with like a morality in those movies, and he's like, you can make the tough decisions, Bond, that other people can't. You can be the hero. But in this, it's like, oh, go ahead and kill people, but he's like he's corrupted when he's influencing Jack. So he can play what he's done before, but he's going to show different motivations behind it. And then the character Voldemort, like in Harry Potter, he tried to kill Harry when he was a baby. And in this movie, his character has murdered his children, and he's influencing Jack to kill his son. So this would just be like, this wouldn't be his first rodeo, and child killing or attempted murder. It'd be like just a couple more notches in his wand.
All right, guys, go ahead and debate it out.
Yeah, I love the couple more notches in his wand. That was a good one. This is another like I love all these actors. Like Ralph Fiennes is always like really, he's always great in what he does. I mean, I remember seeing him show up in Skyfall and being like, all right, like let's see kind of what's up with this dude, and not being too sure where he stands. And Martin Freeman's one of those, like, I don't know, like you said, Curtis, ever since he showed up as like Bilbo and like he's a likable dude. I mean, I don't know. For me, when it comes to Grady, like, I don't know. I'm still collecting my thoughts, trying to figure out how I feel on this, because these are all really great actors.
This is good. This is, to me, this is one of the rounds I was not looking forward to, because I know it's gonna be a tough one, because I love Ralph Fiennes, and I love Colin Firth, and you know, I could probably see two actors in these roles. I mean, probably what I could say for now, for Ray Fiennes, as much as I love him, I think probably too obvious of a choice. I mean, the tragic about Delbert Grady is that Delbert Grady, before he became a murderer, before he became like a psychopath, he was this upstanding, respected man. With Ray Fiennes, if you look at him, you could totally see him snapping any minute and killing his family.
He does have a lot of killers in
guy,
his filmography, yeah.
This guy played Eamon Gluck in Schindler's List. I mean, this dude has been playing villains like a lot of it in his career, not just Voldemort. And then with Colin Firth, God, I'm like arguing against this guy. I think, you know, I don't think the mainstream audience are much used to his toughness side.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people have seen Kingsman or are aware of Kingsman.
Yeah.
I think they're more aware of the Bridget Jones, King's Speech, Mamma Mia type of Colin Firth, not the hard edge Colin Firth. I think with Martin Freeman, I think that with him playing the character, it just adds to the tragedy of the character. I mean, you look at Martin Freeman, it looks like exactly what Delbert Grady described, this upstanding, respected man. This upstanding, respected British man. But you couldn't see him going to these lows, losing himself and becoming a psychopathic murderer. I think so. I think if you choose Martin Freeman, it just adds to the character, adds to the tragedy of him.
Well, with Colin Firth, like, true, some people might not have seen Kingsman, but he also sells the "you're gonna follow my orders," and that's the lay of the land. In 1917, there are very few bigger name actors who appear in that movie. I think it's literally just like him, Benedict Cumberbatch, and maybe one of the Game of Thrones guys. But his scene stands out. Like he sets up a lot of the exposition, like, this is what you have to do, you don't have a choice in the matter, go do it now. And even if I had only seen him as in Mamma Mia prior to that, I was intimidated after that scene. Like he has that kind of gravitas to him. And then you bring up that, you know, and I do agree that Martin Freeman always comes across as that very, very charming, like, British gentleman. But, you know, that is also what Colin Firth is very much known for. I mean, especially with things like Pride and Prejudice and doing King's Speech, like he is very much that upstanding British gentleman. And I know that he can handle, like, you know, the character with secrets and layers. I mean, I know he did A Single Man with the Coen brothers. I mean, he's very diverse in what he does, and I find the more he gets into his career, you know, he surprises me with how big of range, how much range he has within him. So yeah.
Well, with Martin Freeman, you were saying that he's kind of like this, like, upstanding guy. I think that's kind of ironic because, like, when I see him, like, next to all, like, the superheroes and, like, Black Panther and stuff like that, he looks a little bit shorter. Like Okoye is like saying, like, I'll stab you or something like that if you talk to my king like that again. And it's just like he doesn't look like he's maybe like as imposing as like the performance that we saw in the 1980s where he's like towering over Jack in the restroom. And with with Colin Firth, I think, like, you know, again, he'd be like a menacing actor on screen. But, like, you know, one of the first things that comes to mind, you bring up Kingsman, is when he says, we're going to put somebody through the test and you have to kill a puppy or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's just like that's like less intimidating to me. And that's more like, that's hilarious. He's going to kill a dog or something like that. And just like the first thing that comes to mind as opposed to, like, murder your family or something like that, or like take them to bit with a hatchet as opposed to a gun. I feel like a sharper object, you know, implies something much more like effective or terrifying on screen. And I just don't know if, like, Martin Freeman or Colin Firth have can provide that same imposing force that's needed for the performance. And as much as, like, Mr. Fiennes has, like, that history of being a villain, I don't think it hurts. I mean, I don't want people to get put in a box and be known as only doing this one performance, but he's sold us that he can do it and he can do it well.
I think if Martin Freeman would ever play this role, I would think it would just diversify his resume, and people would see that he does have a wide range. He can't just known for playing these short, quirky characters. And again, when Rudy mentioned like how kind of a short stature that he has, I think that adds to the tragic character. That adds to that adds more layers. Just people just like, how could this innocent looking dude go so horrific, go psychopathic, and that's kind of it addresses the horrors of this hotel. It addresses it just gives the hotel a more horrific image, and more of an urgency for Wendy and Danny just to get the hell out of there.
Yeah, it could be nice to see him do a different take on the part, and that his stature could provide to his menace. See where you're coming.
Yeah, that's.
No, I mean, what I'm saying. I can only really fall back to what I have said about Colin Firth and his various performances. I think he is an imposing presence, being a rather a tall gentleman. I think I don't know if he, I mean, he's certainly well over 6 foot, but I'm short in general, so most people seem tall to me. But like he is an imposing presence, and I know that even seeing him in stuff where he is being a little comedic, like Mamma Mia, standing up against the other dads, like he does tower over them, so he does kind of bring that physical imposition that I think would work well. And after seeing the two Kingsmen, I certainly believe him as someone who could handle an axe, if not very least an umbrella.
Yeah, that's terrifying. You can kill someone with an umbrella. He's a good action star. Yeah. Yeah, I remember this The Shining, watching it when I was younger, and even now it seems like the kind of movie that has all typical horror movie cliches, and it's like creepy sequences and flashes of graphic imagery. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things that disappointed me about the movie, is that I feel like it's cliches and it's not enough its own thing. But there are some cliches for a reason. I want to see the person who's known for being a villain deliver what horror audiences want to see, what they expect, as opposed to being exciting and trying to do something a little bit different than usual, but casting the unusual actor for the part.
All right, guys, looks like that's the end of that. Good debate all around. Erik, why don't you tell us your choice on this one?
That was a great round, y'all. All of amazing arguments. The 3 actors all of you have chosen. I gotta say, it's harder than the last round. After hearing all the arguments, and I feel out of just seeing the certain actors' body of work, to me, I felt like Martin Freeman is the perfect choice. I thought both Rudy and Logan, Colin Firth and Ralph Fiennes are great choices. Yes, Ralph Fiennes, but it's easy to just say Ralph.
I've already apologized
Fiennes.
to George.
Just wanted to put that part out there, but many people immediately say Ralph Fiennes, but he would have been an amazing choice. I guess after watching Red Dragon recently, I can't unsee that. So I feel like, yeah, I can already see him as like a psycho already. And it's just like the buildup, I feel like, just wouldn't be there after just a career playing villains. And that was where I almost considered Colin Firth. But Martin Freeman, I just think, goes between both lines so well, especially his performance in the first season of Fargo. Kind of goes between playing a criminal and someone we think we like, but we're not sure about. I feel like he just plays the mystery way better. So Martin Freeman, Martin Freeman is my choice for Mr. Grady.
All right. And George, how about yourself? What is your choice?
Well, Well, again, three very interesting choices. These three are a little more similar, I think. They're, kind of tend to play similar roles maybe, but I think that Martin Freeman and Colin Firth are both a little too likable. Curtis and Logan, you both made good points that, they are versatile actors, but just the stuff I've seen them in, even when Colin Firth is killing people in Kingsman, he's still likable and he's kind of the hero and he's like the mentor kind of. He's a nice guy. He's killing bad guys, quote unquote. So I don't know. Maybe there is something out there where Colin Firth is unlikable, but I just feel like he's always likable. So it would be a surprise if he played a killer, but I feel like Ralph Fiennes is just very charming. And I was going to mention Schindler's List, and I forgot about Red Dragon. He is kind of like a weirdo in that, but like he's also kind of unassuming and kind of just seems like a nice, handsome person who's this crazy killer. I'm going to go with Mr. Ralph Fiennes.
All right. And Jack, how about yourself? What's your choice?
I agree that Colin Firth, even though he is pretty menacing in Kingsman, I couldn't see him as a monster. I agree with George that it would be a pretty big stretch. Not to say that he couldn't do it. All of these actors are such great actors that they probably could do it. But I would have to go with Martin Freeman because also the character of Grady is absolutely a substantial role, but it's not the leading role. And I feel like Colin Firth and Fiennes are both pretty much leading men. Of the three, I would have to go with Martin Freeman. All great choices, though.
All right. Okay, so for me, this was hard because, as everybody has said, like they're all great choices and they're all very capable actors that I think could do this role and do it justice. When we first started off with the debate, I was leaning towards Rafe just because, like, you're right. Like he was menacing and going after kids in Harry Potter. But really kind of thinking of Grady, I think it's supposed to be a bit of a surprise that it turns out that he killed his entire family, because that just kind of adds to the mystery element of this particular story. So with that, like I kind of leaned away because he does kind of just have a naturally villainous look to him, depending on how he's acting and like what he looks like. So for me, it was between Martin and Colin, and I love Colin Firth. I loved him ever since I saw him in What a Girl Wants with Amanda Bynes. But I also love Martin Freeman. And I feel like with Colin, we have seen him in Kingsman, so we have seen him go a little harder and a little more menacing with it. So we know that that can come from him. But with somebody like Martin Freeman, even if you watch Fargo, like he is one of the main antagonists of that entire season, but you wouldn't guess it by looking at him because he still has like that sweet face. So I feel like it would come as more of a surprise, which I think is a bigger payoff for a mystery like this. So I'm also going to go with Martin Freeman, which means that he is officially our Delbert Grady.
I did not expect Martin to win this round. I thought Ray
Those are always the best.
Really? No way. I mean, yeah. I was like, he was a fascinating choice, but like, yeah, I just think he works.
All right, y'all. So our next round is going to be for the role of Dick Halloran. Originally played by the legendary Scatman Crothers, he is the head cook of the Overlook, who, like Danny, also has the gift of what he calls the Shining. He can telepathically communicate with Danny and warns him not to go into room 237 because he knows the dangers of the hotel. So without further ado, Logan, who is your pick for Dick Halloran?
My choice for Dick Halloran is Forrest Whitaker. Forrest Whitaker, he's one of those actors. He's been around for years. He's always a treat to see in films. Whether it's, but the thing that I love about the character of Dick Halloran and being the cook of the Overlook is that he always feels very warm and friendly and inviting. You always feel like you want to share a meal with Dick Halloran. You want to sit down and have a nice conversation with him. And I kind of feel like that with most of Forrest Whitaker's work. Even when he's playing more, ominous characters like Last King of Scotland, like he still feels like an interesting enough person I would want to sit down to a meal with. And, he always plays good conversationalists in stuff like The Butler or Black Panther. And he can kind of command a situation with stuff like Phone Booth. I know he played a police officer in that one. But he also can kind of have this, like, I know more than I'm telling, and I'm going to be a little bit, withdrawn about it with stuff like Rogue One. Just everything in his career, he seems like someone who, regardless of the role he plays, he is warm and inviting, but also has a lot more going on underneath the surface. And I think that's a really good place to go for someone with Dick.
Curtis, who is your choice for Dick Halloran?
My choice for Dick Halloran is gonna be, surprisingly enough, Sylvester Stallone. Now, of course, it's it does sound like an odd choice at first, but just hear me out. Sylvester Stallone, yeah, we do know him as this like tough action star kind of guy, Rocky, Rambo, Expendables dude. But when you really get to know like Sylvester Stallone in his older years, especially stuff like Creed and in Rocky Balboa, he could come off as a very sensitive, very warm, welcoming, very warm guy. Even in the older Rocky films, in the original one, when he's walking that girl home, and he's like giving her life advice. He always comes across as a guy who you could be friends with, and like what Logan said, a guy who would love to sit down and have a meal with and just talk about life, talk about things, talk about destiny or whatever the topic is. He's gonna have an engaging conversation with you, and he could probably easily pull out those scenes talking with Danny about the shining powers and about the hotel. So yeah, my choice is going to be Sylvester Stallone, especially in the age where he is right now. He comes out as an incredibly warm person.
And Rudy, who is your choice for Dick Halloran?
My choice, it was incredibly challenging, as with most of these performances, to pick someone. And sadly, the guy who played Dick Halloran, Scatman Crothers, he was like 70-something when he played this part. And I was trying to find someone around that age, and sadly, a lot of actors have passed away by the time it's something to reach like the age of 70. I wound up with an actor, the choice Bill Duke. Like, I'm so proud of, like, it would be an honor, like, to be associated if he got this part somehow. And if you don't remember, like, Bill Duke, he was in the movie Predator, and he was also in the original Predator, and in addition, he was in the movie Commando. And one thing I like about him is that he's the character of Halloran, he's really unsettling personally at first when you meet him. It's tough to tell whether he's like a friendly and supportive character who's looking out for your best, for your own good, or if he's like every other menacing character that lives inside of the Overlook, like all these other ghosts. And I think that Bill Duke can provide that. There's like scenes in Predator when him and Carl Weathers are on a mission together, or Carl Weathers played Apollo in the Rocky series. And he tells Carl Weathers, he's like, you gave away our position, and if you do that one more time, I'm going to kill you in your sleep. And it's like, whoa, it's like, I don't know if I want to be friends with that guy. But by the end of the film, he's the only one that can spot the Predator while he's invisible. So it's like he sees things from a different perspective, and you like realize like this is a good guy to be friends with. And I think he has like a nice smile, and he's kind of unsettling. Perfect.
All right, go ahead and debate it out, guys.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't know if this is going to be a big bomb that would affect this debate, or I don't know how big it's going to be, but one of the first reasons why I chose Sylvester Stallone for this role, not only because of his warm personality, not because of his acting range or how welcoming he could be and how friendly he could be on screen, despite his toughness side, I wanted to get away from can't really say the term on this show, but the MN term, and I'll put in what that means in the chat here. Yeah, I wanted to get away from that stereotype. Not to downplay Bill Duke or Forrest Whitaker. I just think I just think a little bit with these times the MN stereotype would kind of be looked down upon. And I mean, again, with Forrest Whitaker is a great actor and Bill Duke is a great character actor. And but despite the stereotypes, the character of despite what Rudy said, the character of Dick Hallorann is not really that intimidating. From the moment you meet him, he's very charismatic, really nice, very warm, very, very welcoming. And Bill Duke, I'm looking at pictures of him. I could see him more as one of the ghosts of the hotel than the friendly cook who befriends this 6-7-year-old boy. Same with Forrest Whitaker. I think he could come off as a little bit tense sometimes. I can't really see him as friendly and warming. I can mostly see Sylvester Stallone as that, despite what he's been known for over the years. He has that range as an actor that he could pull it off. I mean, he got Oscar nominated for Creed, and even though he was Rocky Balboa in Creed, he wasn't doing any fighting. He wasn't doing any intimidating. He was the father figure for Adonis Creed. He was that warm father figure who pushed Adonis to be his best, but still was a dad to him.
Well, and I think Forrest Whitaker has some of those vibes too. I mean, heck, he's gonna be a warm father figure coming up. I honestly I cannot remember the name of it, but there's a Netflix Christmas movie I just saw a trailer for that's coming out soon. That he's like a toy maker, and he's so he's got the warm fatherly vibes there. You'd say that you want someone who's Oscar caliber, because you mentioned that Stallone was nominated. I think Forrest Whitaker won an Oscar for Last King of Scotland. Really, when it comes down to the character of Dick, it just the character and the performance just feels like it's someone who is immensely inviting and you want to sit down and have a conversation with him. I know I said that in my opening, but we get that from Forrest Whitaker intensely throughout the film. The Butler, we see him having these intense conversations with multiple presidents throughout the course of their years, because they value his opinion. They want to know what he thinks. So he always kind of has that warm, inviting presence to him. But there's something with Forrest Whitaker. I don't know. The later he gets in his career, like he is very good at playing characters who, like, I've seen some stuff and I'm okay now, but I've seen some stuff, and I think that's a really good place for the character to kind of rest, like, because it's hinted at in the book a little bit, but like Dick Hallorann has seen terrible things over the course of his life, but he's in a good place now. He's happy working at the Overlook. It's a bit overwhelming at times because of all of the spirits, but they kind of leave him alone. And I can see Forrest Whitaker being that kind of inviting presence. That whoever would be cast as Danny, like, being this person to be like, hey, kid, let me show you around the kitchen, and it not being, this ominous, scary thing. It's just like, yeah, come on, I'll show you around. Clearly, we're talking with our minds here, but everything's all good. Like, I don't know. I can see Forrest Whitaker bringing that kind of inviting presence. Bill Duke, I like a lot of his stuff, but yeah, a lot of his things, he does come across as very intense. I mean, certainly Predator. Like, he's definitely a very intense dude in that one. And with Stallone, like, he has mellowed in his more recent years, and I know he's done stuff like that with Creed, but every time I see him doing that, I don't know, I almost feel like Stallone is just stretching to wait to punch somebody. And that might just be the vibe I get when I watch his stuff, but it always just feels like he's ready to be like, and yeah. Anyway.
Oh, there go again.
I mean, in Creed it was like, cancer, whatever it was. Like, he wants to punch something, and whatever can help. So.
Well, I think like with Bill Duke, I don't think there's a problem with necessarily coming across as like, Curtis, you were saying that him or Forrest Whitaker could both be seen like better as Ghost in the movie, And I don't think there's like a problem with him coming across as a little bit menacing or unsettling to begin with. As when Danny first learns that Scatman Crothers or that Halloran can communicate with the Shining, like Danny's a little bit scared because he thought, as far as he knew, he was the only person that could do that. And so I think that it's okay to show that side, like kind of spooky force from the character to begin with, because he's still going to be very friendly by the end of it, because we're still dealing with the same script from the 1980s, and he's still going to come to the rescue at the end. And I think it's difficult to imagine Sylvester Stallone coming to the rescue and being killed by Jack Torrance, because like he's and as much as like Bill Duke has like that history of being in action films, he's also like not somebody that is bulletproof. There's a scene when Jesse Ventura's character dies in Predator, and it's at night, and they're gonna have like a funeral scene for him, and he's gonna put the flask in there with him, and he's looking up at the stars and the moon, and he's in despair about his friend's death, and he's honoring him. So I don't think that he's necessarily got that problem of strictly being an action star, and I think he can be heartwarming and menacing. I think Stallone's character is it's tough to imagine him personally having that conversation with Danny about the supernatural.
Yeah.
And Forrest Whitaker, you were saying he's like very like welcoming character, open arms to you, and bringing people in, and I don't think that that's all that's essential to the character. I think there's more to him than that, and that's what I got to say about that.
I mean,
first. Oh yeah, finish your thing, Curtis.
I mean, what I was saying, Logan mentioned that Forrest Whitaker won an Oscar for playing in Last King of Scotland. I mean, he wasn't exactly a warm, welcoming dude in that role.
Of course.
He played a dictator. Whereas as with Sylvester Stallone, I mean, just seeing him, even though I just see him going like, "Hey, kid, you want an ice cream?" Or you like, I don't have the best Sylvester Stallone impression, but I just imagine that.
I'm not laughing because it's bad. I'm laughing because it's amazing, and I'm imagining him giving a kid ice cream. I was transported. I was there with you. Exactly.
It's the most heartwarming thing, and it's tender. It's a perfect offbeat to this suspenseful and horrifying movie. And when people are watching that and Sylvester Stallone, slurs and all, talking to the kid, I think he can come across as really tender, as really charming, and I want to add another a film that he's been in recently. I mean, with the last Rambo movie, Last Blood. I mean, most of the movie he's Rambo. He's killing fools left and right, especially in the third act. But in the movie, we see that Rambo has retired. He's living on his family farm. He has like house assistants that he lives with. This a Hispanic lady and her and her daughter, and he has like a wonderful fatherly bond with the daughter. And I don't want to give away any spoilers, but like what eventually like kind of happens for her and is what sets him off and what makes him like enact revenge. But it works because the bond that he has with this girl was so tender and was so heartwarming, and that just proves that Sylvester Stallone could pull that off. He could be the one character that you don't have to be afraid of. And what Rudy's saying, like, you can't imagine someone killing Sylvester Stallone. That just adds to the shock value of the film. It's like, whoa, they killed Sylvester Stallone. What's going on? It's like this went from 0 to 100 real quick. That could add to the shock value. That could add to the impact of what this movie could make.
he's just kind of like a ridiculous with that accent too, and it just like I feel like it would like come across as a comedy. And as much as like he can play those like serious and tender moments, like in Rocky Balboa when he's having that talk with his son about like it's about how much you can take and keep on coming.
Yeah.
It's like I'm always gonna remember at the end of like Last Blood when he like literally rips someone's heart out, and I don't think I've ever
And
seen
shows
that.
it to him. Yeah. There was something I wanted to bring up because Rudy brought it up, and like, yeah, I can't see Stallone losing a fight. I know like he technically loses a fight in the middle of Last Blood, but like, yeah, he still ends the movie with cutting a dude's heart out and showing it to him. But Forrest Whitaker can play that. I want to be protective of this person I clearly care about. And I might not be up to the task. Lest we forget, in Black Panther, he is clearly trying to be a father figure to T'Challa when he is there. You know, he's there with his anointment ceremony and taking care of that. But when Killmonger's there, he tries to step in and is killed right then and there. You know, and it is. I was certainly shocked seeing that in the theater because I had expected Forrest Whitaker to be there for a huge chunk of the thing. So like that's the thing. I simply think Forrest Whitaker can bring the kind of warm, inviting nature that I would want to see out of a 2020 version of Dick Halloran.
I don't know how much I have to say about this. Is because you brought up earlier, Curtis, about the topic about maybe I don't know what we're getting at, but like it being like updated for the times and not having an black actor or a person of color in the position. But I think it's something that the movie from the 1980s benefited from, is that that's not what the movie's about, but it is definitely like a sadistic undertone that's that can be appreciated in the movie. It's like as much as like it's like a disgusting side to see to anybody in life, it's these are the villains of the movies, the ghosts that are bringing that up, and that are tormenting Jack and his family. And I don't think it would hurt too bad to have that in there, to have either Forrest Whitaker or Bill Duke in the part.
All right, y'all. Interesting debate. How about we go to George first? George, what's your decision on Dick Halloran?
Okay. So again, very interesting choices. Rudy, when you brought up Bill Duke, I was like, I recognize that guy's name, and then I looked him up and I was trying to see what I remember him from. And yeah, I know him mostly from like Commando and Predator, and I'm sure I've seen other stuff. But it's interesting that you picked Bill Duke and then Curtis picked Sylvester Stallone, because they're known for playing like these tough guys, and they're playing this kind of nice guy at the hotel. Forrest Whitaker is a great actor. I do think Bill Duke and Forrest Whitaker are very similar to Scatman Crothers, and if we're going by the script, from the 80s, it seems like that would be kind of the way he's written. But I think it would be really cool, interesting to do Stallone, because I think especially as Rocky now, like in the Creed movies, he is very nice and gentle, and it almost seems like he's someone that in real life would never hurt you, but in the ring he's going to kick your butt. But in real life he wouldn't hurt a fly. And I think it would be shocking if Jack kills him with an axe, and kind of like Curtis was saying, like it would be a shock that Stallone just got killed with an axe, and like it would kind of show that he has an ability to maybe play a more vulnerable character, because Rocky's vulnerable but still wins, but he did lose the fight in Rocky 1. So I just think Stallone would be a cool choice, and kind of like Curtis was saying, it is kind of like an MN trope, and it might be cool to maybe in this case switch the race and have Stallone play it. So I'm gonna go with Stallone.
All right. Jack, how about you? What's your choice?
All good choices. I like them all. I have to agree with Logan's argument the most, though. I see the character as a very warm, very compassionate person who, cares about this little boy and would do a lot. And I agree that Forrest Whitaker's previous work and persona meet that pretty darn well. I could see Forrest Whitaker flying all the way from Florida back to save the little boy and his mom. I just, that definitely works for me. With Stallone, I think everyone would be so afraid, so expecting for him to fight back Jack when he hits him with the axe, to grab the axe and then turn around and defend himself. I mean, maybe. I mean, maybe it would make for interesting viewing. All good choices all around, but of the three, I'll go with Forrest Whitaker.
Okay. All right, so we have one for Stallone, one for Whitaker. Erik, how about yourself?
Amazing choices. Curtis, I got to give you a lot of respect for Sylvester Stallone. That was a pick I did not see coming, and the way you explained the character, the way you explained your argument, I'm like, yeah, I do like that choice, as well as Bill Duke. I did not expect him either, but from the body of work I have seen from Forrest Whitaker, and I guess the offset persona, especially, he gave us Ryan Coogler, and Coogler gave him like a role as the father figure in Black Panther, and just he's played a father figure many times, but also can be intimidating if he wants to, like the guy that's seen a lot. It's just Forrest Whitaker just has an like he can be beyond evil if he wants to, like he won for his Oscar winning performance, or he can be the father figure we all can connect to. He has that range to pull it off, and that's why I got to choose Logan's choice and Forrest Whitaker.
Okay, so this one was hard because they were all very interesting choices. I think I'll echo George's point of it was interesting that Rudy and Curtis, you both went with action movie stars when we're known that they can kind of hold their own and be intimidating. Performance-wise, I mean, Sylvester Stallone, I think he would just come off as too capable. For me personally, just hearing things and allegations in his personal life make him a little problematic for me. So I couldn't in good conscience vote for Stallone, just with kind of how I feel about that, if I'm being completely blunt. So for me, it was between Forrest and Bill, and it would be interesting to see Bill play against type, just because he does kind of have an intimidating look to him. But I also have not seen much in his background with him working with kids, which I think is very important for a role like Dick Halloran, because even if they're supposed to be like intimidating, they need to be soft and warm and kind of protective of a child, which in this would of course be Danny. And Logan, I really like that you brought up that Jingle Jangles movie that's coming out in December, because it's literally going to be a kids movie. I'm super excited for it because we also get to see Keegan-Michael Key play a villain, and I love him. So yeah, I think my choice is also going to lie with Forrest Whitaker, just because he has that kind of warm fatherly energy. So with that, I think we're going to go into our break next, right? All right, everyone. So our next round, we're going to go to casting Wendy Torrance. Originally played by Shelley Duvall, the kind, gentle, yet probably abused wife of Jack Torrance. She cares deeply for her family, especially for her son, Danny. Though she shows fear, she'll do anything to protect her son when Jack shows signs of losing insanity. So Rudy, why don't you go first with your choice for Wendy?
Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, so I went with an actress named Rosa Salazar, and she played a supporting role in that Bird Box movie that with Sandra Bullock on Netflix. And in addition to that, I don't think it's infamous. Like I think like it was like one of the most like best examples for like young girls to look up to in movies, like as a hero in that that Alita Battle Angel. I thought she was like just like outstanding in that. And so she's gonna be my choice.
All right, awesome. Logan, who is your choice for Wendy?
My choice for Wendy is Rashida Jones. Now, while Rashida might have a big background in comedy, I mean, it's hard to forget her in shows like Parks and Rec and The Office, or even comedies like I Love You, Man. She is very good when she branches into drama, like with films like The Social Network or My Idiot Brother with Paul Rudd. And the one thing that she always kind of brings to me whenever I watch those movies is she's always kind of refreshing. And I feel like when you look at the character of Wendy, she should feel like this breath of fresh air to Jack when he's not under the cloud of the Overlook. She is someone who he would want to come home and kind of unwind, spending time with at the end of the day. So yeah, so my choice would be Rashida Jones.
All right. And Curtis, your choice for Wendy.
My choice for Wendy is Hermione Granger herself, Emma Watson. One thing I know about Wendy, especially the Wendy we see in the movie and how Shelley Duvall portrayed her, is that she is a very, very vulnerable, very, very probably low self-esteem type of insecure type of woman. And I think, even though the character of like Emma plays like Hermione comes across as sometimes confident, sometimes Emma Watson could easily play characters that are probably unsure of themselves, a little bit too polite or too giving, too sensitive, especially with characters like she played her character in Little Woman, and her character in The Circle, and her character in Noah. She could come across as very vulnerable pretty well, and someone who is not used to experiencing all this horrific supernatural stuff going on around her, and her demeanor and her stature, her petite stature, could really add to how add to how innocent she is, and add to how scared she is for her life, and how scared the audience is for her life. No one wants to see Wendy die or be a victim to these ghosts. They want to see Wendy and her son escape from the hotel alive and safe. And I think people will get that when they see Emma Watson in that role. So my choice is going to be Emma Watson.
All right, go ahead and debate it.
Man, all three of these ladies are spectacular at what they do. But honestly, at least for me, both of y'all's they feel much too capable. I mean, lest we forget that Emma Watson held back 6 full-grown men, and This Is the End, with a baseball bat or a cricket bat of her own, and stole all their stuff. So she, reads as very capable and confident in that kind of role. But also, like, she had confidence in the Bling Ring. I think it was a Sophia Coppola, something. I don't. But her character was very confident. I remember she did that just after Harry Potter. And same with Rosa Salazar. I mean, Rudy, you mentioned it was something I loved her in, Alita Battle Angel, but she is a completely capable kung fu robot who's gonna fight a creature off with only one arm remaining. Spoiler alert! Like she is. There's like I don't see her necessarily running scared from Jack. Yeah. But with someone like go for it, Drew.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh.
But I agree with like Curtis, for example, how you say that the character must be extremely vulnerable, and Logan, how you were saying that she doesn't seem to come across Rosa Salazar as a vulnerable person, because as we saw like in Alita Battle Angel, she's like such a badass. She's taking like war paint, again, spoilers, blood from a dead dog, and wiping it on her face, and then kicking somebody's ass with just one arm left. But I think we have to remember a detail that Shelley Duvall doesn't get mentioned in this category a lot, but she's a final girl, just like Jamie Lee Curtis, just like Heather Langenkamp in the Nightmare on Elm Street series. And I don't think there's like a problem with having somebody who's capable of being like a strong female character in this part, somebody who protects her son and comes out on top in the end, even though Danny plays a big part in defeating Jack, like he's the one that gets him lost in the maze. And at the same time, I do think that she's capable of being vulnerable. In the Shining movie from the 80s, Jack Nicholson was in his 50s, and the actress Shelley Duvall, she was in her 30s. And I think that this movie here should do what Jaws did for people being afraid of the ocean. Maybe women being like, I'm not sure if I want to marry someone that's significantly older than me and that could take advantage of me or something like that. Like, there's scenes when she goes to stand up again. Oh no, she goes to have a conversation with Jack, and he's like writing away, and he's like, I was intense, I was in the moment, you interrupted, or something like that. And she's like instantly regretting just like being in this relationship with him and being like stuck out here in the middle of nowhere. And Shelley Duvall, like, no offense, I remember like a week ago we were talking about the movie Jumanji on this show, and we were saying like how Joey King could be like one of the children. I was like, I don't know if I like the look about her face or something like that. And but I think like that's something that's like appealing in horror films. It's like a cliche that you look for. Shelley Duvall had those bug eyes, and she was like not only vulnerable, but she was she just looked pathetic. And I think that like that was appealing. I appreciated that, and I think that Rosa Salazar has that look, and she can represent the final girl and be vulnerable.
Well, with Rosa Salazar, let's forget in the Battle Angel, that was CGI special effects. That was doing stuff to her eyes. She didn't really have that much bug eyes in real life. I think we're gonna go back and forth on this. If we're talking about people who seem too capable, yeah, Rosa Salazar, she does seem too capable with her, and I do believe Rashida Jones as well. Rashida, if Jack Torrance was chewing out Wendy, I couldn't see Rashida Jones doing that, and I could see Rashida Jones taking none of that crap from him.
While I do agree that Rashida can kind of play that, lest we forget, in something like Parks and Rec, she is this beacon of confidence, yes, that Leslie Knope looks up to, but she's also not confident enough to stand up for herself and getting out of a clearly terrible relationship with Chris Pratt.
When she found out that Andy was faking his leg injury, she immediately broke up with him. She immediately like, oh no, I'm not taking any of this. No, we're done. We're through. You lied to me.
And that's my point. I can see her standing up in that level of confidence, but she has played where I'm confident in certain areas, but when I am pushed and I am bucked against, she retreats back. And so I think that's something that is there with Wendy as a character. Like it's a terrible characteristic that she has, because it's not good that she isn't standing up for herself, or it takes, Jack threatening her with a bat for her to stand up for herself.
And going back to this, the end, even though there's more, that was more of a comedy. Emma Watson was going up against 5 schlubby comedic actor guys in that movie, not psychopathic killers, not yet, but
and one of the choices for Jack Torrance, lest we forget.
Yeah, but I can see easily Emma Watson in these scenes, especially when she's trying to get away from Jack, when he's leading her up the staircase, or where Rudy, the scene that you were talking about, where Jack is chewing her out, about him not focusing on his writing and her interrupting him. I see Emma Watson coming in at first confident and loving and wanting to hear Jack's stories, and after she chews her out and basically tells her to get the F out, her immediately regretting what she did and immediately becoming vulnerable and insecure and afraid again. I think Emma Watson could easily pull that off, because she just has that innocence, that face of innocence, that face, that type of girl you don't want to break her heart, and when she does get her heart broken, your heart as the audience is broken, because she just comes across as that girl next door who you never want to hurt. And I want to also go back to what Logan said about Wendy being the comfort for Jack, the one that Jack looks forward to going home to. I don't think in that movie Jack has, even from the beginning, I don't think she has that much love for Wendy. I mean, again, we're not discussing the book The Shining, we're discussing how the movie portrayed that story, and from the movie standpoint, it doesn't look like they had that much of a healthy relationship to begin with.
True, but she is trying to be that supporting it. She's trying to make the best of it. She's trying to support him. She's trying to be happy. She's trying to be as supportive as possible, just like Rashida Jones is trying to be as supportive of Andy as she can in his weird ways in Parks and Rec. When it comes to Emma Watson, even with things like Hermione, where she is playing a character who isn't the most confident and isn't the most assured, she always feels like she is, though. She still she feels like she is Yeah, she feels a bit too, lest we forget, she's the first person to call Harry and Ron on their stuff. But at the end of the day, at least for me, I feel Emma Watson reads as, at least for me, slightly too young. This is a character who, like, she has been in a relationship with Jack for a very long time, and they have at least an 8-year-old kid. And something about Emma, she seems too young to have a child of that age already.
Well, Danny is like somewhere around 6 to 8 years old, and right now Emma Watson she just turned 30 years old. So if she would have that kid like 22, 23, 24, it doesn't seem too off. And from the character of Wendy, from the movie standpoint, it doesn't seem like she was a girl. She was a girl who got her bachelor's, got her master's, wasn't too focused on education. Mm-hmm. This character was focused on raising a kid, raising her son. And I could see someone like Emma Watson having this kid at like her early 20s and now 30s, seeing how old, depending how old Danny is, 6 to 8 years old. And even in I want to go back to what you said about Harry Potter. Like there are scenes where she is confident and sure of herself. There are a lot of scenes where Hermione is legitimately scared, even though she's smart, even though she's wise, even though she knows everything she needs to know what it is in the wizarding world. She's afraid when she gets attacked by a mountain troll. She's afraid when Remus turns into a werewolf. She's afraid of the Dementors, the Death Eaters, the Battle of Hogwarts.
She's afraid. She is the one to. I am going to be terrified, but I'm going to stand brave in the face of this thing. And that's always the strength of Hermione as a character. That's
kind of what Wendy does too. She's immensely terrified of the spirits in the hotel during the third act, but she's still frantic. She doesn't give up. She's still frantically searching the hotel for Danny, so she and Danny can get out of there.
I think regardless if you think that maybe she is too young for the part, I think an issue with Emma Watson is, I don't know if it's been brought up yet, she was in Beauty and the Beast, which is essentially the exact same story as The Shining or something like that, where she's being kept against her will, like out in the middle of nowhere in this castle. And I think she like had her shot at this storyline, and not that she didn't do an excellent job with it, but it would be the same thing over again for her, with like a different coat of paint on it, and it would be nice to see her move on and do different things. And also, this actress, Rosa Salazar, as much as you said that like something to do with her eyes for the Alita Battle Angel movie, there was a lot of visual effects added on top of her to make her look the way she does. Mm-hmm. There's also like motion capture, and I think you look at her and the images aren't too distinct, her real appearance next to the final product.
I just think my problem with Rosa Salazar is the same thing as Rashida Jones. I think she just more than Emma Watson. She does come off across as too capable and too. She has too much. She's a lot more secure than Emma Watson can come across as. And again, I think she's the type of one who instead of running away from Jack, she would easily like kick his butt, and that she and Danny just go off and happily ever after.
Well, she was very vulnerable in the movie Alita Battle Angel, in addition to being an action hero, because she's someone who is essentially starting off life as a teenager, young adult, but she's relying on everyone to teach her new things. And so I think that she's definitely someone that's, as much as like, by the time the credits roll, she is an action hero, she did play both sides and show that she's someone that like takes advice from others and is kind of like pushed in different directions to be told like this is what you like and this is who you need to be.
And for me, when it comes to these actresses, if we're talking about just the escaping of the Overlook, Emma Watson reads as she's already got the escape plan figured out. She literally has Danny on standby at something. Like they've practiced drills to be ready to be running out. Rose Salazar, she's kicking Jack in the head and he's falling down the stairs because that's honestly just how capable she comes across to me. Whereas Rashida feels like she's going to be thrown by the fact that Jack is this violent, this quick, because it's she's only seen it with alcohol and he hasn't in theory had any. And then thinking, I gotta save Danny and get out of here, and being overwhelmed, but trying to kind of fight to get where she needs to be.
All right, cool. Good debate, guys. Erik, what is your choice for Wendy?
Great round, y'all. Wonderful choices. I really like Rosa Salazar. She's a great actress. She did an amazing job in Alita, and I hope she gets another opportunity. I feel like Bird Box. I feel like she should have been the lead, even as much as I love Sandra Bullock, but I feel like she had the capability to pull that off. But and same thing with like Emma Watson. I feel like I do agree with Logan. I just think they were capable. They would have a plan in place. Yes, they're great actors. They can play both sides, but I think out of all of them, the one I didn't expect is the one I'm going to choose, and that's Rashida Jones. And I just think Logan brought a lot of good arguments forward, but also that she has just been in everything. And also she's willing to work with an ensemble cast. And I think she would also bring, like, I would want to follow her. And like, and I love what you said, Rudy, about the character being the final girl. But I feel like Rashida, I think, would be the best final girl. Because, like, I guess after watching Parks and Rec, I would follow her anywhere. But also just seeing her in a world like this, and whoever any of the directors that we choose, I think she would bring a amazing performance. So Rashida Jones.
All right. For me, as much as I love her, I do have to agree. I feel like Emma Watson's just a touch too young. I don't know if I could see her as a mother of anybody that's older than like maybe like 1 or 2 years old. I really liked the choice of Rosa Salazar. I really wish that you had brought up that she was a murder victim in American Horror Story, because that I think would have really helped your argument. But even just the fact that she was in Bird Box, that's what I felt like kind of fit with a character like this, just simply because she has more of a horror background than Rashida Jones does. And I feel like both of them are within the same age range. Like they're both in their 30s. I think Rashida might be in her 40s, or she's close to it. So I could believe them to be the mother of an older child. But I could also believe Rashida could be a victim of circumstance, which I think is what a Wendy Torrance is. It's hard for me just because I think either of them could do it. But for me, I think just because of resume, I'm gonna go with the choice of Rosa Salazar. George, how about yourself?
Okay, so yeah, this is a tough one. You guys picked 3 really interesting choices, and you put up some very good points. I do think that Emma Watson and Rosa Salazar, it's weird because they seem like they would be too young, but I feel like Wendy was pretty young in the book and probably in the script. And from what I understand, the book, she was kind of like a blonde cheerleader type. So casting Shelley Duvall was kind of going against what she was portrayed as in the book. So in the script, if we're going by the script, she might have been portrayed more like the Shelley Duvall portrayal. I do think that Rashida Jones could play someone who's very nice and likable, and maybe kind of put upon like she was on like Parks and Recreation. But then in the end can be someone who can fight back and take on Jack. So I'm gonna go with Rashida Jones because I think that's a cool choice.
All right, sounds good. So with that, it looks like our Wendy is going to be Rashida Jones. Good round, guys. All right, now we're going to go on to the Big Daddy, Jack Torrance. Jack Torrance was originally played by Jack Nicholson. He is a struggling writer and recovering alcoholic who is hired to look after the Overlook Hotel during the winter. After experiencing writer's block and isolation, he starts to get a little cabin fever. The spirits of the Overlook feed on his insanity and relapse and encourage him to enact their horrible wishes. So for Jack Torrance, Curtis, who is your choice?
So my original choice, if Emma Watson was chosen, was gonna be Jack Quaid, who plays Huey in The Boys. My whole angle of this was going to be going more for a younger couple with Jack Quaid and Emma Watson, just because I think that just adds to the tragedy of the story. That would just add to the tone of it. But since we're going with Rashida Jones, I had a backup, and I posted this on the event page and in the comments. So my backup for my choice now for Jack Torrance is going to be James McAvoy. Of course, James McAvoy is no stranger to doing anything Stephen King related. As we see, he is older Bill in It It Part 2, and he, of course, his brilliant performance in Split and in Glass. Even though Glass is when most people consider Glass to be subpar to Split. I I I I really kind of enjoyed Glass until the third act of the film where it got too self-aware. But um, his performance as the Hive or whatever you want to call him in those movies, it's so freaking brilliant. It just shows it that alone just shows how much of a range he has an actor. To me, James McAvoy is one of those actors who can do no wrong. He's great as Professor Xavier. He's great as the Hive. He's even good in something like Wanted, as Mr. Tumnus in the Chronicles of Narnia. Um, he just has it all, and he could easily come across as intimidating and as incredibly scary and incredibly tense. He's an incredibly tense actor. He's worked with a lot of heavy hitters, as he's already worked with Forrest Whitaker in Last King of Scotland. He's already that type of veteran actor who can handle this sort of stuff. So yeah, my choice is going to be James McAvoy for Jack Torrance.
Rudy, who is your choice for Jack?
So my choice for Jack is James Franco. And part of the reason I wanted to go with him is because there's a lot of different reasons. But he, some things you may recognize him from, and actually, this is kind of weird because this is like really early on in his career. Like, it was after Freaks and Geeks, but like when he was in the Spider-Man trilogy and he was like playing Harry Osborn, and I was just his character is. By the end of the trilogy, he's become like like a kind of like a supporting character, a hero. But in the middle of the story, like when he figures out that his like father is the Green Goblin, he becomes a little sick and twisted. He becomes menacing. He's got a grin about him. And like at the end of the movie, there's the scene when he's like the best man at Mary Jane's wedding and she doesn't show up, and you see this look on his face. And I'm thinking, you have something to do with why she's not here. I bet she's like hanging from the interior of the church bell tower with a noose around her neck, like like a pig, Like I would be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked by that. Or like, and he did it. Or maybe like he's gonna pumpkin bomb the hell out of the after party at the wedding. It's just like, it's not out of his range. And also that's what I'm gonna leave right now. And I'll have some other ammunition for later on in the argument.
All right, fair. And Logan, who is your choice for Jack Torrance?
My choice for Jack Torrance is Sterling K. Brown. Sterling's one of those actors, like, honestly, I became a big fan of him watching American Crime Story, the first season of that. Like, it was the first big thing I saw him in, and all of a sudden, like, I just started kind of catching him everywhere, whether it was Black Panther, a little bit of This Is Us, or Hotel Artemis. But I've seen a lot of the aspects of his career that I think could work really well for a character like Jack. In films like The Predator, he kind of has this kind of cocky swagger to him that I think really kind of works for, drunk Jack Torrance, as he's kind of intimidating and menacing and being ominous there. Lest we forget, he's played a killer before. A bit of a spoiler alert here to the show Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He plays a killer in an episode where he's like, I'm gonna commit the perfect murder. And, so we kind of see him be a little bit more ominous. And Sterling he's one of those actors that feels versatile enough, I kid you not, and it's a weird like Clark Kent thing, but there's this kind of shift when his character loses his glasses. You see it a little bit in This Is Us. And I can imagine him doing the scene like actually that I think Rudy talked about earlier, where he's typing away and Wendy comes in and interrupts him, and I can see him just stopping, taking his glasses off, and we can see like this kind of like evil Jack kind of setting in, and him just be like, I told you never to. Like I can see that transition working really, really well from someone like Sterling K. Brown. So yeah, he'd be my choice for the role.
All right, duke it out.
I could now I don't want to assume what people are going to say, but I know that James McAvoy could probably come across as the more sympathetic Jack Torrance that's portrayed in the books rather than in the movies, because but I think James McAvoy has that kind of best of both worlds thing to him, where he could come across as as the as the as a little bit of the sympathetic innocent guy that Stephen King tried to write, and at the same time the intimidating, scary, um, like bat crazy um, dude that is portrayed by Stanley Kubrick and Jack Nicholson in the 1980 film. And I think James McAvoy could pull off that performance. A guy who has to get at the beginning, but slowly as time goes by, he starts losing his sanity and he starts becoming a little bit more deranged. I think seeing that type of performance from James McAvoy could come across as really impactful and really scary.
Well, I mean, we see empathy coming from performances in Sterling. I mean, lest we forget his opening bits, and you know the dream sequences of Black Panther. We can see this kind of friendly face that he wants to put forward and being a good influence on his son. But Sterling can also do that shift and go ominous and scary. I know a lot of people kind of say like the movie itself wasn't the best, but he was really good on Hotel Artemis. And it's one of those where it's like he's one of those, he looks like this suave, dapper guy, but he can turn on a dime and just be like this really scary, intimidating figure. And I think, and that's kind of a big thing for me with Jack. Also, like when I look back at People versus OJ, his performance as Chris Darden, I feel works really well for someone like Jack. He is a character who is trying really hard to do his best, and through circumstances, some within his control, some out of his control, he is just being beat down over and over and over again. And at least in The Shining, Jack thinks he has found the wrung out with, all right, cool. Hey, Lloyd, pour another. Let's do this thing. Sure, I'll give it. Grady, what were you saying? Yeah, let's do that. And he kind of starts getting into it because he has failed so many times. It's just the next rung on the ladder. And I've seen Sterling kind of do that with some of his various roles. And Rudy, one thing I want to say with Franco, while I do think he is a good actor, I personally have never been scared of James Franco. Like he's one of those any movie I've seen him in, like even as Green Goblin, like it sounds weird. When he was simply standing there staring, sure. The second he opens his mouth, I'm like, you're James Franco. Like it sounds weird. He has that very, like some people have a goofy smile, and I feel like Franco's got a little goofy smile going. I mean, we see it in Spider-Man 3, when he turns and kind of gives that look to Peter where he's like, haha, like, I got your girl. Like, I mean, we know the smile, I think itself has kind of become a meme a little bit at this point. But yeah, so at least for me, I've just never found Franco all that terrifying.
Well, I do think that how like there like how you said, like there are those moments where like it looks like he becomes a meme and that he is goofy. I think that he's also chosen some like very dark roles before, and I think that the Shining is like subject matter that when it's being adapted should not be taken lightly. I remember like there was the movie Room. Correct, and they did the adaptation with the disaster artist, and as much as like the movie Room is like a joke and considered one of the worst movies ever, he approached it with a huge heart and with respect when making that film, and I think he would approach Stephen King's work the same way. And I think that like that adaptation of Room is he's very terrifying on screen in that. He's like dark and twisted and like wondering like what he's capable of in that movie.
When James Franco or Logan said, not only am I not really that scared of him, I can't really take him seriously. I know he's done some drama and he's been commended, especially stuff like 127 Hours. But anytime I see him, I tend to smile or laugh when I see him than actually intimidated by him. With Sterling K. Brown, I don't know if to me from what I've seen him in, he comes across more as sort of the good guy. I know he played a villain in the newest Predator movie, but I don't know. It didn't really come off right to me. Just seeing him as as an antagonist, as someone who who's who's lost his mind. I I don't know if I, I don't know if I don't know if it comes right up if it comes right for me. Um, with with James McAvoy though, I mean, I think he has those sort of like sunken eyes where just looking at them when he gives you like a mean, intimidating look could set you off edge. I could see him doing the looks that not Jack Nicholson gives when he's staring out the window or where he's just staring out and he's just facing out, sitting on the bed when Danny comes in to get his fire truck, or whenever or when he's leading Wendy up the staircase and chewing her out and trying to get at her. I could easily place James McAvoy's face and his stature and his look and cut him and paste him on top of Jack Nicholson and see him doing those roles. And it's I think it would really come across to the audience as really, really shocking and really intimidating and really impactful.
Well, you say you're unable to see Sterling as a bad guy, but lest we forget, that is technically what he is in Black Panther. Like, he is an antagonist. He is trying to, he is sowing the seeds of Killmonger's, stuff down the road. And once again, in Hotel Artemis, he is this ominous, scary killer. And same with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He is a sadistic he plays a sadistic psychopath who is so confident he's going to get away with the perfect murder. It's just, I don't know. When it comes to Sterling, I've seen enough throughout his career that I think he could kind of do the weird tap dance that I think it works for someone like Jack. James McAvoy, I don't know, like, he's a good fit. Obviously, he's played a writer with stuff like It Chapter 2, but I feel like McAvoy, especially after stuff like Split and Glass, for me, I think McAvoy falls into the same category that Jack Nicholson did, which I didn't like. Whereas he reads a little too soon, like he might go nuts. Like I would want a little bit more mystery and build up to kind of see, like, okay, well, is he going to go crazy, or is he going to be able to resist the thrall of the Overlook? And I feel like I see McAvoy, and after seeing Split, I'm like, yep, he's going nuts. And I feel like I know that too quick, just like I did with Jack Nicholson.
I don't think there's anything wrong with my choice, James Franco, looking a little bit goofy every once in a while in movies, like, or menacing. You were saying that, like, Harry's become kind of a meme in, like, Spider-Man 3, but if you look at The Shining, like, as soon as quarantine started this year, everybody was saying, like, oh, that's my family right there at the beginning of the year when we're driving up to the hotel. It's like, I'm going to murder him. Or when he's, like, staring out the window while they're going through the hedge maze, and he's got that look like he's lost it. And, like, you expect him to go and, like, murder his family. And that's funny. It's like comedy and horror oftentimes do go together. It's not all scary. There are, like, ups and downs to it. And it was and he should be menacing. In the movie, Jack Nicholson goes over to 237, right, and he sees the lady inside the bathtub, and he ends up, like, kind of like having an affair. James Franco's totally capable of that. You ever seen, like, in Pineapple Express when he goes to his man Red to get the drugs, right? And Red goes and says, oh, yeah, I got the herpes on my lip. And it's like, you got that from eating the lollipop out of her snatch. And he's like, I told you that in confidence. And then, like, James Franco's accused of eating a Nerd's box out of a girl's butthole. So it's like, he's totally a sick and twisted person that would go and, like, make out with some other lady besides his wife.
Well, he does read as sick and twisted. Like, all of those were played for laughs. And I mean, heck, even as Curtis said in his opening intro, that scene is supposed to be the most terrifying in the movie, or at least it was for him watching it. Like, I mean, I would certainly be like, I would find it really jarring and not necessarily a good way to get into that scene and want to laugh. Because that is Jack at that moment. That is Jack completely falling into the thrall of the Overlook and being completely overrun by the thing. So I don't know that playing, as potentially with comedic. I don't know that just feels kind of odd to me.
It's like he's certainly unsettling, yeah, and I think he's capable. like, you know, when Jack goes into the restroom to get his jacket cleaned off, right, by Delbert Grady, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying like, oh, there's a cook and he must be killed and he's black or something like that. And it's just, and Jack's looking at him like, are you crazy? It's like, he has that moment where he kind of like questions Delbert Grady, you know, whether I should be taking advice from you because you murdered your family with a fire axe and hacked them to bits. And so I think that's like, you know, he shouldn't be scary all the time. He should be somebody that's kind of like capable of being just pushed and he can like fall over the edge.
I saw that scene as more as Jack fully getting into the trance that the hotel has put him on when when Delbert Brady says to him like your son called the N-word cook to and to solve the problem and then Jack without because I think like the hotel like brings out the worst in Jack because without hesitation Jack repeats the word he repeats the word without any hesitation without questioning what Delbert Grady just said he says the N-word too so I think and that with James McAvoy I think he has that talent of going from 0 to 100 like real quick. At one moment, he could be understanding, he could be sympathetic, he could be a little bit warm, he could be calming. But then if you turn him off the wrong way, he can immediately snap. And there's a scene that I want to go back to in the original Shining that could elaborate that is the scene where after the 237 scene where he goes in to meet Wendy in their room and they're talking about Danny. Wendy said, maybe we should just leave. Maybe this is not good for us. Because at first, Jack is sort of fine at the beginning of that scene. But then as soon as Wendy says, we should leave, we should consider what's happening with Danny, then Jack snaps and yells and chews Wendy out again and saying, like, you're not going to F up my life. Like he keep continuing to do so. And James McAvoy is just used to doing scenes like that, especially with stuff like splitting glasses. Starting at one emotion and then immediately switching to a completely opposite emotion and completely selling it.
I think it's too easy to sympathize with James McAvoy, and I think that James Franco's character, it's like he's almost ruined other girls' lives in previous productions that he's been in, like in Freaks and Geeks, like when he's in high school dating those girls, and he's like gonna potentially lead them down the wrong path. And in the movie The Shining, Jack Nicholson, he eats his eggs and bacon like a psycho. He has a sunny side eggs and he like dips the bacon in them, in the yolk like that and eats them. And there's a reason why in Spider-Man 3, when they're making that omelet, him and Mary Jane together, and he spills it on the ground, it's because he didn't want to eat the omelet that way. He wanted to dip his bacon in the sunny side up egg. Logan, you go ahead. You go.
When it comes to Sterling, I all I can kind of say is kind of what I've been mirroring throughout the round. His performances throughout his career have shown that he can play this teacher who has had some anger issues that have kind of gotten away from him and lost him his job at school, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna make a go at being this writer. I'm gonna make this be a thing, and trying and failing and not being able to succeed in that. And I can see Sterling playing this man who has been just beaten down over and over again by life and is trying his best to just make it work. And at moments it does, and a lot of times it doesn't. And at the end of the day, he simply keeps fighting. Because that's mostly what I see from a lot of Sterling's work.
Really good round, guys. This is tough, but I will go ahead with my choice first. With James Franco, he is a great performer, kind of like another actor earlier, though. He is very problematic in real life, just with choices that he's made in his personal life that can be pretty glaring, that I think might make a studio wary of having him head a project like this. And also even, I know that the other two said that he is kind of goofy looking. To me, I think he has almost like a villain's face, especially with those eyebrows. Like, if you look at him in Spider-Man, like, he just kind of gives off that natural kind of villainous look, which I think James McAvoy also has, just a touch. And it all just kind of depends on like angles and stuff like that. And while James McAvoy is a pretty good choice because of the resume and stuff like that, he has done a role kind of like this in things like Split and Glass. I do think that it's because those are really recent roles and roles he's really well known for right now. It might be a bit obvious that Jack is going to be losing it at some point, and kind of like with Grady earlier, I think it's interesting as to the mystery element to not really see that coming, or you, even when you feel like it's coming, you don't know when that is going to tip over to the edge. And I feel like with James, you kind of see he kind of has a roundup where you're like, okay, I know at this moment this is when he's going to lose it. So I think my choice is going to go with Sterling K. Brown. I really like that you brought up the fact that even though, yes, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is a comedy, he plays a psychopathic killer very well. He plays it very seriously, and I think that just kind of adds to it. And I think he'd be an interesting choice for something like this. George, what is your pick?
Okay. So again, 3 very interesting choices here. You guys made a lot of good points. It's interesting, Logan, I think it was you that said you're never intimidated by James Franco. But I almost feel like it'd be like Jack Nicholson. The minute you see him and he's got that big smile, you'd be like, my God, this man's insane. And I don't know, I feel like I think he is a good actor and he can do drama. I mostly know him from comedy stuff. But I do think he can play evil well, but maybe would seem too evil from the beginning. And I feel like James McAvoy is very charming, and Jessica just mentioned Split. He's someone who seems very charming, but is crazy on the inside. And Sterling K. Brown, I loved him in the OJ show, like you mentioned, Logan, but I don't really know him for much else. And just from not knowing much else that he's been in, he just seems like, a nice guy and not really someone that I would see going crazy, even though you said he's played some villains. So it's a tough choice, but I think I'm going to go with James McAvoy.
All right. And Erik, who is your choice for Jack?
All right. Well, wonderful round, all wonderful choices, some unexpected. James Franco, for him, I mean, I know we're in a world right now, technically we're in a world where The Shining doesn't exist, but Spider-Man 3 still exists. So I cannot unsee that. Sorry, Rudy. And also it's all the comedies that he did. I'm just like, I can't. I might, maybe some things he was a bit intimidating, but I cannot unsee those movies. So sorry, he's out. For James McAvoy, I feel if he had taken on this role before Glass or before Split, yeah, I think it would have been a better role then. I just think it was said perfectly. I think it'd be obvious, kind of like Jack Nicholson, even though if it was the original script before Stanley Kubrick took over, I feel like he'd be able to play perfectly as well. It's just Sterling K. Brown, though. Logan, I thought you brought up a lot of amazing things in his filmography, but the one that I think you won me over was Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But the fact that because in the beginning we want to believe this guy's the killer, but he just plays it in a way where you're just like, no, it's not him. It's not him. Kind of like what I've seen in every episode with Lucifer. No, it's not them. It's not them. It's not them. Then Lucifer figures it out. But anyway, before I get into that, I think Sterling K. Brown could also play it straight for a while, to the time where I think he is a talented enough actor, especially being in the way he played Christopher Darden in Crime Story. I feel like we can see that descent played very well through him. And I think out of all 3 actors, it would be the most unexpected. So whether it's the Kubrick script that we all technically saw in when it came out in the 80s, or the script that or the other script, I feel like Sterling K. Brown could do both. But from the Jack Torrance, from the book and the movie, I feel like he would be the best choice. So Sterling K. Brown.
All right, so with that, our Jack Torrance is going to be Sterling K. Brown. All right, guys, now we're coming up to our final round, which is going to be for the director of this project. In the original Shining, director legend Stanley Kubrick helmed this horror classic. His identity, signature tone, and love of building suspense and atmosphere is present throughout the film. Our new director must be as close as possible to Kubrick's tone, vision, and atmosphere. With that, Logan, who is your choice for director?
My choice for director is David Fincher. David Fincher is one of those directors I always thoroughly enjoy his films, but he is kind of captured these super slow burn films, whether it's stuff like Zodiac or Gone Girl or Seven. He's really good at creating this tense atmosphere, the slow tightening of the screw that I think works really well for something like this. And he can do the people trapped in an environment as someone is chasing them in panic. Lest we forget, he did Panic Room with Jodie Foster. So he has kind of the experience with someone like, oh, I'm protecting my child and I'm running in fear and terror. So he's got that while building Jodie Foster up as a strong female character, while also showing she is afraid, but she's fighting for her life. Yeah, Fincher's just one of those directors. I'm always a real big fan of his. I always say that, especially with a film like Zodiac, he impresses me that he made a almost 3-hour movie where, in the grand scheme of things, not a lot happens, but it's riveting every single minute of it. And that's a big thing with The Shining. Like, if you look at it, like, not a lot really happens. It's a lot of just these slow character beats and these little moments here and there. I think Fincher really excels at that kind of stuff. So yeah, my choice would be David Fincher.
All right, and Curtis, who is your choice for director?
My choice for director is Ari Aster, who we know has directed films like Hereditary and Midsommar. Hereditary, he already has got the whole haunted supernatural elements down. And that involve a family as well, a family that is going off the edge, a family that's on the edge of being broken and being dysfunctional. He's got that down already. And then with Midsommar, taking characters and isolating them into an unfamiliar environment that seems welcoming and seems pleasant at first, but then as things start to reveal itself, it becomes more uneasy and a lot more dangerous and a lot more cringe and a lot more tense. He's great at revealing things are not as what it seems. And then with the ending of Midsommar, it's kind of similar to The Shining, where the main character gives in to their environment, to the environment they visited, and gives in into what that environment has to offer them, while making everyone else that the victim. So and Ari Aster is a director who pulls no punches. He's not afraid of showing what he wants to show. He's not afraid of going too extreme. He could go extreme if he wants to. Let's see the ritual sacrifice scene in Midsommar, so traumatizing. And then he could pull that off at scenes like a Room 237 scene, or whenever Wendy is haunted by the spirits near the third act, he'd go all out on that scene, just showing horrific images and to continue to traumatize this character. So yeah, my choice would be Ari Aster.
All right, and Rudy, who is your choice for the director?
My choice for the director is Clint Eastwood, and since I'm the last person delivering my director, you mind if I kind of like kick off the debate?
Yeah, sure, go for it. I would just maybe give your reasoning as to why you chose Clint Eastwood, and then you can go right into it if you like.
I think the reason why I chose him is because I think that he's a director who's he's reliable. He can always put out a solid product, and I think that he's capable. As much as like he may not have a lot of history of making horror films, he can definitely provide graphic images that make you want to turn your head away, even if you're a big horror fan. That can make you uncomfortable. I was like watching the movie Unforgiven for the first time a year or two ago, and there's a scene when a prostitute gets her face cut up with a knife, and it was just so disturbing and sad to watch. And there was no movie that made me feel that way in a long time. And I think that he's got a good reputation, being like having delivered a couple of Academy Award-winning Best Pictures for Warner Brothers, and I assume this would be a WB picture after Doctor Sleep came out. So I think that Clint Eastwood would be a good choice.
All right. You want to go right into the debate then, Rudy?
Okay, so what I was thinking was like one of the problems that I had with The Shining growing up, and then this could just be me, is that as much as I enjoy there being questions at the end of the movie and being able to have a conversation with people about what it was about, I think that there were so many unanswered questions by the end of the film that it almost felt like it was lazy writing in some ways. And it wasn't until Dr. Sleep came out that I could really appreciate it, seeing like a different point of view within that same world that was able to complement that. And I think that first movie, and with David Fincher, I was like, you brought up like a Panic Room, and though that is like a similar movie in a sense that it's Jodie Foster and Kirsten Stewart trying to escape the house, mother and daughter. One of the first things that comes to mind with that movie is there's Jared Leto's character, correct? And he, what she does is she has like she sets off like that fire, that small explosion, and then he briefly gets lit on fire, and he's kind of a coward and wants to get out of there.
Oh, yeah.
And I find that like really comedic. Or like watching, there's the musician in your movie, Dwight Yoakam. And when he gets like his fingers cut off at the door, like that's hilarious. But there's no moment in The Shining where you're like, oh, that's a hilarious movie. And I feel like,
well, and I think that's a debatable point. I think that to look at one movie that I said, like, yes, those particular moments out of Panic Room are hilarious, but like you can't look at stuff like Gone Girl and Seven and go, yep, those were hilarious in there, or his adaptation of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Fincher is known for doing these very dark, thrilling, like, tales of humans, like, and kind of just falling apart in a lot of ways, whether it's stuff like The Game or Fight Club. Like he has experience with work, like doing films that are about people who are losing their minds. He's done films with people who are trying to survive from outside influence. He's done a lot of movies that are long, slow burns that have kind of built over long periods of time. Lest we forget, Zodiac takes place over years. I realize The Shining is months, but he can kind of do those slow burn kind of movies. Clint, like, while Clint makes very like good movies, and they do get award recognition, like you said, Clint doesn't have like experience in horror movies. As far as I know, the only experience he has in them is starring in a Creature from the Black Lagoon like sequel way back at the beginning, like one of the first movies in his career. So, and with a lot of Clint stuff, it is slow burn, but it never really feels like, at least for me, it never really feels like it builds the kind of pace that something like The Shining does. And Ari Aster's a really interesting choice. I think Ari is one of those where Ari's rocking a lot really, really good horror lately. And I think a lot of the family dysfunction in Hereditary works really well for this. But if we're going on the fact that it's kind of a mystery that Jack's gonna lose his mind, I think potentially casting putting Ari Aster in there might tip that hand a little bit too quick, that like we're going full horror. Whereas if we were to go with someone like Fincher or Eastwood, we're going, this is a family drama. We're gonna see this family here in the wood, in the hills, these lovely Colorado mountains behind us, and kind of just and see their family drama.
Well, I think because the original Stanley Kubrick movie doesn't really focus on there's hints at the family drama, but more focuses on the supernatural elements. And I think Fincher's good at focusing on human. I don't know how to term it. Is it human horror, like psychological thrillers and things that are a little bit more grounded, which with Clint Eastwood, I don't think he's the type of director who's interested in doing stories that relate to supernatural elements, despite how much talent he has as a director, taking anything away from him. I mean, he had some misses, but for the most part, he's a very talented director, he's a very competent director. But Clint Eastwood's more interested in telling real world stories and stories that sort of have a meaning behind them. And he would like with things like Gran Torino and Flags of Our Fathers and Letters to Iwo Jima and Unforgiven.
Well, I think haven't his last like 3 movies been all like real world stuff, like The Mule and 1317 and Richard Jewell. Like they've all been those very real world stories. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what Ari Aster is good at is he's good at. I mean, Stanley Kubrick is definitely the difference the production of The Shining, but Ari Aster is really good at pushing these actors to the edge and we're making really, really uncomfortable scenes. There's a lot of uncomfortable scenes with Shining, and I think Ari Aster could be like replicate that, especially with the room 237 scene. And there's this. I mean, when Jack realizes the woman he's been kissing is a decaying old corpse, and she's like laughing maniacally. I just really see Ari Aster making that really, really get under your skin, because the thing with Ari Aster, he can make, for some weird reason, he can make crying really intense and really get under your skin. In Hereditary, with Toni Collette, when she finds her daughter's body in the car, you see Alex Wolff in the bed just waiting for crap to hit the fan, and then when you hear Toni Collette crying, it gets under your skin, and it lasts for like a good minute and a half. And then when Florence Pugh finds out that her sister murdered their parents in the beginning of Midsommar, when she's crying on the phone with her boyfriend, that's unsettling and unnerving too. It really gets under your skin, and even though the corpse is laughing in The Shining, I could see Ari Aster finding some way to make that really get under your skin, because it gets under your skin in the original film. And then there's that great scene in Hereditary where Toni Collette chews Alex Wolff out at the dinner table. It's to me, it's probably the scariest scene in the film, and there's no supernatural elements that happen in that scene. It's just Toni Collette going off edge and acting with her eyes and her facial features, and it really terrified me. And with the scene, and I can see him doing that with the scenes where Jack is chewing out Wendy for interrupting him when he's writing, and especially in the scene with the baseball bat and he's leading her up the staircase. I could see Ari Aster using his talents to make that scene really, really, really intense and suspenseful and thrilling as well.
You mentioned we mentioned like how the style of a director, like we wanted to kind of fit with the attitude and the vibe of Kubrick. And one of the things that I've read pretty consistently when it comes to Fincher is that he, much like Kubrick, he shoots as many takes as he feels it needs to get the perfect take. And Kubrick was known for doing that. He was known for asking for take after take after take just to make sure he was getting it right. And Fincher is kind of in that same idea. Like he will redo a take if the camera move isn't exactly where he wants it to be. Like he is that same level of perfectionist and wanting to make sure that each frame of the movie is this beautiful frame that works well with the overall kind of tapestry of the thing. And so I think like Fincher brings that kind of Kubrick aesthetic with it, with obviously a lot less emotional abuse that Kubrick was clearly bringing to the picture with Shelley Duvall.
I think that I was saying, like, Clint Eastwood's got a history of putting out solid products. I think that that's a problem. Is I would want this movie to be graphic, and I'd want it to be uncomfortable, but not at it allow for what happened with Kubrick on set and Shelley Duvall and his treatment of crew members to come along with it. And I know that Clint Eastwood is extreme opposite. He's known for only doing like 2 or 3 takes on set, but if he can put out good work and only have to do that amount of put that much effort into it, then that's not a bad thing. And I think Curtis was helping out my argument when you were saying that probably the best scene in Hereditary is when the son calls out his mom at the dinner table right there, and that scene is so uncomfortable, and how it has no supernatural entity about it in that scene. Well, if Clint Eastwood doesn't have a lot of supernatural scenes in his movies, then who's to say that he couldn't put out just as uncomfortable of a scary movie? And I think it's a really good thing that he doesn't have that history in the horror genre, because he's not going to he's coming into it with a fresh pair of eyes, making a horror film for the first time. He's not like relying on cliches. He's like discovering his path on his own, making this film. And I think like a problem with Hereditary is it's The Shining is a fun movie to watch. I look forward to watching that each year when it's like on AMC and they're doing like their horror fest on TV. But Hereditary and Midsommar are just so disturbing and unsettling to watch. I hardly ever want to come back to those. If I'm having the worst day ever, then I'll sit down and watch Hereditary, because I am so depressed, and they feel what I feel. Like that daughter just got her head taken off by a telephone pole. And there's just like so many questions. Like there's like this huge twist by the end of Midsommar and Hereditary, and it's just ridiculous. And like you said, it's kind of funny. Like you're laughing at it because it's so out there and goofy, and I can't believe it went there.
I think the intention of The Shining was to make it fun. I think the intention was to make it was to make it unsettling, and was to make it disturbing. And I think Ari Aster, out of all the directors that were mentioned here, I think his vision and his style is the closest probably to Kubrick's. From the way he sets up his shots, the way how his cinematography, the way he lights his scenes, and from the way he builds his scenes with dialogue, and the way he sets up the camera, the way he angles them, it's very close to Kubrick. There's similar shots that The Shining and Hereditary shared. There's the scene in The Shining where Danny's in the game room, he's playing with the darts. He gets the darts, and then he looks around, the camera zooms in on his face, and then he sees the twin standing there at the door. That's similar to when in Hereditary, where Tony Collette is working on a little dollhouse, and then she sees something at the corner of her eye. She turns, and she sees like the ghost of her mother standing there at the door, and it's very unsettling and very unnerving, and it gets you off guard. Both Ari Aster and Stanley Kubrick share those type of visions, and they're sets to the way the sets they work in are really elaborate and are really stylized and memorable. Even in something like Midsommar, where you got this you're in this like Swedish village, and in the big room where everyone sleeps. It's very stylized. It's very it's very simple yet very memorable, and that's the same look that the Overlook Hotel has. So I guess that would be my final arguments on that.
And even if Ari Aster is the closest of directors of our kind to being like Kubrick, I mean, I'm looking at it like a Price is Right scenario, where it's like you want to guess his number that's as close to the actual price as possible without going over. And I think Ari Aster goes over. It's just like it's so over the top. And then with Clint Eastwood, it's like even though his stories aren't supernatural, they're epic, and they're seeing people get put in miserable conditions, like and their tragedies. And with him like dying at the end of Gran Torino for other people, and like it would be neat to feel for Jack by the end of the movie, because as you've said in the books, he's a much easier to get along with person, and it would be neat to essentially see like the story told and to the audience be let in on some like different sides of the character, or to if you were depressed, to see this family fall apart by the end of the movie. And yeah, that's what I got to say.
And for my closing statement, when it comes to Fincher, it's one of those. Honestly, he's one of those directors. I'm a big fan of his, so like anything that I really say is going to come across as me just fanboying out over him just as a director, because I really like his stuff. But I think just aesthetically, a lot of his stuff feels very much like The Shining. In pieces, parts, you can kind of look at his career and see aspects of The Shining. He's one of those directors. He's pretty consistently reliable. I mean, we can all kind of agree one of the weakest movies in his career is one of the earliest movies in his career, and he has only gotten better from there. He sticks with the dark kind of aesthetic. I think the most lighthearted film he's done was probably Curious Case of Benjamin Button, which is like not the most lighthearted, but certainly more than Seven. But like I was saying at the beginning, Fincher is very good at doing this slow turning of the screw. Something is off and we don't quite know what. We can see that really well in films like Gone Girl. From the very beginning, we're presented with a scenario and we know something is off about it, but we can't quite tell. And the more the movie goes, the more that tension just ratchets up little by little by little until all of a sudden it comes to a head. And in this case, that head is, Jack bringing an axe. So
Gone Girl is still hilarious. It's like the ending, like seeing Ben Affleck being stuck with her for the rest of his life. And she's like, haha, it's like, you tried to outrun me, but you got to deal with it. And then like even Fight Club, it's like another example where it's like excellent storytelling. Like that is like one of the best twists of all time. It's like understatement of the year. It's really well set up. But even that movie has like a lot of comedy through it, and it could be just like, but again, it's like it's not uncommon to find that in his movies, and I think that The Shining shouldn't have that.
Well, while those might have comedic aspects, those aren't the overall feel of the movie. So,
All right, guys. Good round. I'll start off with Erik. Erik, what's your choice for the director?
I will admit this was the hardest out of all the rounds. All three wonderful directors, especially I guess I focus on directing in my life, so choosing director is harder than choosing an actor for me. I'll start with Clint Eastwood. It's just he's made an entire career out of making movies out of real life situations. He's never really done horror. And also, I don't know if Hereafter counts. I don't really recall any him directing any supernatural type of movies. So I'm just kind of like, why would he start now? And he's never done it. If he did like maybe like Shawshank or a movie like a drama for Stephen King would have been like, okay, but I just don't see him starting doing a Stephen King movie now. So for Ari Aster and David Fincher, I would be first in line to any movie that either of those guys direct. I feel I would shoot probably out of the two. I think Rudy actually brought up a wonderful point about Ari Aster. I feel like it would be disturbing immediately because I remember how unsettling both Hereditary and Midsommar were, besides how beautifully shot it was. I mean, I think he directed an amazing Shining movie, especially with the slow burn part, but it just, I would feel something was up immediately. Not that I wouldn't feel like something's off. It's just like something is so screwed up, like immediately. I feel like he would get right into it. But Fincher is just so smart at the slow burns. And if I were to put every scary scene from all the films he has done, because I feel like most of the films he's done has at least one or two scary scenes. Zodiac, the basement scene. Pretty much the last 10 to 15 minutes of Seven. Or Panic Room, to be honest, pretty much the whole movie. I was on edge the whole time. But the slow burn of it was where it just kept me hooked. And I think, Logan, you said it perfectly. The worst movie he ever did was the first movie he ever did. And he took his name off of it. But ever since then, he has learned from everything he has done. And they keep getting better. And I cannot wait to see Mank. But it would be cool to get him back to doing a supernatural, getting him to do a thriller. But also, he could make it scarier. And I feel like The Shining, written by Stephen King, directed by David Fincher, it would be scary. I wouldn't know what, like, I think Ari Aster, I mean, it would be scary the whole time, but for Fincher, it'd be a different type of horror, the slow burn horror. And I feel like he would be able to build it up to the point where it's just like, we are mentally exhausted by the end of the movie. But I'm glad I watched that. So David Fincher.
George, how about you?
Okay. So yeah, this is another tough one. Rudy, I think Clint Eastwood is a very interesting choice, but kind of like Erik said, and like everybody said, he's never done horror. And I feel like he's so late in his career. I don't think he would really want to do something different. Like it seems like he just kind of picks stuff now that maybe is like easy to make and like, you know, something that interests him. Nothing really that's going to be like pushing boundaries or anything. Maybe earlier in his career he would have directed this. Maybe he even would have starred as Jack, like directed it and starred. But just now it just feels like he wouldn't do it. I think Ari Aster and David Fincher both would do a great job with this. But like if I was talking about like now, if somebody was making it now in their careers, I think Ari Aster making The Shining right now would be really cool because he's someone who is become like well known, but he's still early in his career, and I feel like The Shining would be kind of his way to bridge the gap between like still making an upsetting horror movie, but he's going a little more Hollywood or mainstream. But he might be able to take something that's, you know, a Hollywood idea, but it's a disturbing Hollywood idea, and just putting his imprint on it. And I just watched Hereditary, so I just think he'd be a great choice. So I'm gonna go with Ari Aster.
All right. For me, this was tough. I kind of am going to be echoing what George and Erik said, that I just don't think Clint Eastwood would make this now. I remember watching his very first movie he ever directed, which was Play Misty for me, which is kind of like a non-supernatural version of The Shining. He did do a couple thrillers back in the day, but just with his body of work in the past few years, it seems like he's more interested in telling real stories based on true stories. So I just don't see him doing it right now in this career. But I mean, between the two, I will be completely honest, I do not like Ari Aster just as a director. I don't like his movies. But that's not to say that he's not a good director. And I love David Fincher, but I do think the only thing that goes against Fincher for me is that I haven't personally seen any supernatural storytelling from him, whereas we have seen that with Ari Aster. And I do agree that Aster is very Kubrick-esque with just the bizarre stuff of his movies. But I mean, we also have to remember this movie was never made, so we can't really compare him too much with Kubrick style just because we have to pretend like Kubrick never did this movie. And David Fincher is very good at telling a slow burn story, and it's a slow burn, but it keeps the audience interested. But it's a hard one. I think for me, I'm gonna go with Ari Aster just with his body of work. But Jack also said that he picked David Fincher, so we actually have a tie between Fincher and Aster. So Rudy, if you want to be the tiebreaker between the two for director.
All right, I'll do that. I think I would end up going to David Fincher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So that is it. We did it.
All right.
Hooray! We have our cast.
All right. So let's run down the cast here. We have as Lloyd, we got Michael Sheen as Delbert Grady. We got Martin Freeman as Dick Halloran and Forrest Whitaker as Wendy Torrance. We have Rashida Jones as Jack Torrance. We have Sterling K. Brown, and as a director, we have David Fincher. This is a very stacked, very very overwhelmingly good assembled cast. Most of it were Logan's choices, but hey, they're all good. They're all superb. So
I feel like we could have gone with any choice and it would have been a great movie. You guys had some really awesome picks.
Of course, yeah, of course. I wouldn't mind seeing Clint Eastwood direct this as well. It would be a new take for him, but it would be really interesting to see what Clint Eastwood would do with horror. Yeah, all of our choices were pretty good, and were some of them out there, but they were bold choices nonetheless. So yeah, I would totally go see this movie day one. I mean, it's David Fincher, number one. I love Sterling K. Brown. I love Rashida Jones, Forrest Whitaker. I love all these actors. It's a Stephen King story. So this would interest me on, and I would want to go see this on day one. Erik, what do you think?
I would definitely see this movie. Fincher would be, whatever the script is, Fincher will be very respectful of the script. and he'll add he'll add a lot of visual genius to it, like he always does. But also, he is going to get incredible work out of every actor that we cast. Because I wonder for the longest time, like, is he really that good with actors? I think Gone Girl kind of proved my point, because that is still one of the more odd casts I've ever seen, but everybody was perfect. And everyone was perfect for the roles. And the way everyone brought every actor to this, I feel like they'd all be dying to work with Fincher. They got to get used to doing 100 takes, but I feel like they would do, this would be an amazing movie. I hope it premieres on Netflix next year.
Jessica.
Oh my God. Like, you just say David Fincher. I'm already there day 1, 2, 3, 46, 862. I will keep that movie in theaters if theaters ever open up again. And I love Sterling K. Brown. I want to see him do more things, but especially in starring roles. And I love Forrest Whitaker, even with, like, you know, just like he gets that look on his face where you're just like, you know that he doesn't want to be here right now dealing with this kid in the kitchen, but like gonna have fun with them anyway. I think that they work really well off each other. And yeah, I think it would be a really interesting and great movie. I think I would probably like it better than the original one, if I'm being honest.
George?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting lineup, and I just like how you guys always pick such different choices. Like, you know, once in a while we'll pick similar directors or similar actors, but most of the time it's just all over the place, and it's cool to see different variations on it. And yeah, I love David Fincher as well. You know, he does direct very good, disturbing movies, and obviously very influenced by Kubrick, so I think he's a great choice. And I'd also be interested to see who they would cast as Danny, because I feel like, you know, I don't know how David Fincher works with kids. Apparently Kubrick, as hard as he was to work with, he was very nice to the kid that played Danny and kind of convinced him that he was making like a family movie, basically. And didn't let him see any of the scary stuff.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know? So at least the kid wasn't traumatized. But yeah, great lineup and great discussion.
And
those twins are
Logan.
nice.
I like, this was far and away the most difficult cast of the future you have put together thus far, Curtis. Like, just with, like, because let's be real, like, every single one of these were like, yeah, put it out of your head, put it out of your head. It's The Shining. Like, it's one of those, it is almost one of the quintessential scary movies, and it's so hard to put together this movie that's going to kind of feel like its own thing. But honestly, like, yeah, y'all had some ridiculously good choices, and I think this movie would be a really fun one to see.
Yeah. Rudy, what do you think?
Yeah, I would definitely like want to get out to the theater as soon as I could to go check it out. It's I want to love The Shining, and just like even though the whole point of this debate was, you know, it was about what if the 80s one didn't exist, especially after seeing the 80s one. It just you know, I know like remakes have like a bad rap, but you want to see somebody bring something else to it. Like, you know, if somebody's making it, they got to have some passion for the subject.
All right. I know some of you watching this can't see our Zoom private chat, but Jessica said Sylvester Stallone is Danny. I can see him. I can just see him as like Danny.
I could see him going there.
I love that.
Okay, Danny.
Doesn't have to
Hey,
talk,
Tony.
that's a good thing.
Tony.
But I don't want it to be like a CG Sylvester Stallone on a
No.
kid's body. It's just Sylvester Stallone
How you doing?
And they
Red
never
rum, huh?
acknowledge
Red
it.
rum.
in like a crop top, but like Sylvester Stallone in kids' clothing. So like the pants are too short and the shirt is a crop top.
Reminds me of that Family Guy joke. If I'm fat, Stewie must be fat. We're the same size onesie.
Got like the lead for like AC/DC, like in a schoolboy uniform or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, imagine riding in that tricycle around.
Yeah.
But a
Like
child's
talking to his finger
tricycle,
and
he has
stuff.
to make it work.
I feel like a new Jigsaw.
problem child when he gets like dropped off at so many different people's houses because nobody can stand to have him. It's
Yes.
Sylvester Stallone's background. And all of a sudden, like Wendy and Jack just adopted Sylvester Stallone.
All right.
I'm
So
sure we'll make it work.
one more time as we look back at our cast. You have Michael Sheen as Lloyd, Martin Freeman as Delbert Grady, Forrest Whitaker as Dick Halloran, Rashida Jones as Wendy Torrance, Sterling K. Brad as Jack Torrance, and David Fincher as the director. So, folks, that was episode 14 of Cast the Future. Thank you all for joining us. I'd like to thank Rudy, Logan, Erik, George, Jessica, and Jack for joining us today. Join us next week where we're going to continue our series of horror-related films for the month of October. And the next episode is going to be another one of my all-time favorite horror films, is depending what day you ask me. Exorcist. Deemed to be, by most people, the scariest movie of all time. That's going to be a tough one to pass for 2020.
I'll bring the split pea soup.
Yeah. So yeah. We'll just provide the PC for us. So yeah. Thank you for joining us, folks, and we'll see you all on the next Cast the Future. Bye bye.